Coming up next on Two Cops, One Donut.
We do a small gun prevention topic. We call it Don't Risk, Don't Touch, DRDT. It's just something to help kids remind, hey, if you find a gun on a park or at a playground, a friend's house, this is what you do. You leave it alone, you find some help, right? Because it can be very dangerous. They may look like a toy, but it's not a toy.
Not a week later.
So, and about a week after we left that school, we had a counselor call us like, Justin, they did it. What do you mean? Well, they found a gun at our school playground. The first thing they did was run back to their SRO and say, hey, I found this. Nobody touched it. They left it alone. They said, DRDT, leave it alone. Run, tell your SRO, and he handled the situation. It ended up being like an airsoft gun, but you didn't know. Yeah. They didn't know that.
Right.
And they did the right thing. So we hear those type of things, or you'll see the kiddos or counselors say exactly what you said. Hey, you never know what you're going to get. Different communities are different.
All right, welcome back to Cops One Donut. I am your host, Eric Levine, and today I have with me Justin Delacruz and Mike Gatta. How you doing, boys?
Good.
Doing well.
Thanks for having us.
Not a problem. It's going to be kind of I like to get out there what I'm doing for the podcast because they're long. And when people start listening, they're like, I just want to know what this podcast is going to be about. So could you tell me that up front? And so I don't have to listen and find out it's really fucking boring. So this one is going to be about some former officers who branch off and try to kind of follow the trail that I'm trying to do, is bridge the gap just from a different, not from the job.
Yeah.
I'm sure you guys started doing that from the job and then just it grew beyond your control. And I'm kind of hoping the podcast one day is like, hey, Levine, you can hang it up and we'll just let you survive off podcast money.
You can Rogan it.
Yeah, I'm trying. $200 million contract. That'd be nice. Hey, Spotify, where you at? Respect to the shirt, Black Rifle Coffee Company. That is a sponsor that I've always wanted to snag.
They're very good people.
I'm a member, by the way, Black Rifle. I am a coffee member. I get shipments here every couple months, so love it. Good stuff. But so what's been up, boys? How are you doing?
Man, I'm doing good. Good. I'm glad we're here.
Yeah.
You live super far away from where we are.
Oh, do I really?
Yeah.
Well, you could have done remote. We didn't have to do in studio.
The in studio is the whole feeling of it all.
It is.
You're just like, this is where I want to be.
I prefer doing in studio. I hate editing in studio because when we do remote, I don't have to worry about camera 1, camera 2, camera 3. I only have one camera, and it takes me all of 10 minutes to edit a remote. It takes me all of like 5-6 hours to edit this. So. But it's okay. It's worth it.
It works.
That's why we do it. If I didn't want to do that, I guess I could get rid of 2 cameras and just do one. And I wouldn't get your beautiful mug shots over here. So, okay. So this episode, we're going to dive into, obviously, your background, my little humanizing portion. I've been doing this on, oh, by the way, guys, if you listen to this episode, April 27th is right around the corner. It's April 8th today. That's my 2-year mark. So,
hey, all right.
Congratulations.
Pretty cool, right?
Yeah.
So, we're going to talk about their background, where they're from, why they got into law enforcement, that they were cops, what they did, and then we'll get into what they're doing today. Should be a good conversation. I got 2 of you here, so it'll go longer than the typical. So, I'm excited, boys. Let's get into it. First off, let's start with you, Justin. Where are you from?
I am originally from Lubbock.
Okay.
Moved here, went to high school in the colony. Once out of the colony, I actually got into firefighting. I had some good friend of mine that were firefighters, so I was like, you know what? I like fire.
What do you mean the colony?
The Colony, Texas.
Is that a city?
Yes.
It's called the Colony.
Yeah, it's a colony of all of us.
That's creepy. That sounds.
It is.
Sounds
it's like a movie.
We live in the compound. We're from the Colony.
Yeah, it's right between Frisco and Louisville.
Okay.
So now it's growing because they have so much stuff out there. But yeah, so I went to school out there, grew up, wanted to be a firefighter of all things. Thought about joining the military to be a firefighter in the Air Force, and that didn't work out. So I ended up. I was actually a singer. Like, yeah,
What?
Yeah,
You got a voice?
Kind
like
of
a mix between Fergie and Jesus?
A little bit. No, I sang for a long time before any of this, like right out of high school. And actually was on tour and got to do a lot of really cool
What?
things. Yeah, it was pretty neat.
Were you?
Uh,
Okay. I'm looking at you. Let me guess. I'm not gonna say pop music.
don't say Ricky Martin either, because
Oh no, that I can't. I'm white. That's racist. I can't say it. I'm going to lean towards. Do you speak Spanish?
I don't.
Okay, so that's out.
I
I'm
did
gonna say
sing
you
a
did.
little bit in Spanish though.
I'm gonna say you did a little Red Dirt.
No,
That's my guess.
no,
No?
it was. I was younger, and it was more of a pop thing. Yeah.
Just trying to give you an out,
It-
man.
It's okay. Like,
Watch
hey,
it.
it was a time in my life that I really enjoyed it. Actually, like I wrote a lot of music, so
Okay.
that's how it actually started. I was writing music for very very well known people in the business, and then I just started singing a couple of the songs that I wrote. They threw me on tour, and then we went from there.
No shit.
Yeah, it was
Okay.
pretty neat.
Did you
Well,
sing with anybody big that I would know?
Yeah, I sang with an artist named Frankie J.
Frankie J.
He sings Sugar Sugar with Baby Bash. It's probably their biggest song out there.
Okay, I think I know
Um,
that. Sugar,
it-
sugar, why you get so fly?
There it
Yeah,
is.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's probably the biggest song that they had together. We did a lot of things. It was just one of those chapters that you don't really expect to happen, but it happened.
Did you have choreography dance?
I had dancers dance for me.
Okay.
I'm not a huge dancer. I
Oh.
just liked. I'm very comfortable in front of people.
Yeah.
So I liked just being out there and having fun and letting people have fun watching whatever we did.
I'm
So,
a karaoke king.
yeah.
Yeah, I got
Yeah.
my go-tos. I like Sublime, Santeria. That's like my first song I'll sing for the night.
Yeah.
But
Friends
it-
in Low Places.
that's always a classic. Or Sweet Caroline.
Yeah.
Those are nice. But I'm not a singer.
It's okay.
I just, but like you're saying, it's fun to be up there. So
Absolutely.
we have fun. Me and my buddies back home. So
I ended up doing that for a while and then came back home. And like I said, I had some friends that were firefighters and I was like, you know what? I could probably do this. So I put myself through the academy up in the Aubrey area and then worked out there in Pilot Point after I finished the academy for a couple years. Just at the time, it was very, very difficult to do full-time firefighting. Everybody in the world wanted to be a firefighter. When you applied for Arlington or one of these larger cities, there was 2,000-3,000 people applying
Yeah.
for 10 spots.
uh-huh.
So I needed to figure out something else. And I had other friends that were police officers. They're like, hey, you already did this. Why don't you try to do this? And in between there, I also sang a little bit more with another group from here. They're called Emerald City.
Emerald City. Yeah,
Yeah.
I know Emerald City.
So I sang for Emerald City. I was
That's
a
a
front man.
huge band.
Yeah.
People don't understand. There's a lot of people in that band.
Yeah, it's about, they think it got bigger, but when we were there, I was about a 13, 14 piece
Yeah.
band. So
Yeah.
I toured again with them. I was with them for about 3 to 4 years, or actually 4 to 5 years. Another great experience. Got to do a lot of things, see a lot of places. We went to just about every house of blues in the United States. Played at Disneyland, Disney World, any kind of big event
Yeah.
is usually they're one of the first call to bands. But whenever I got into policing, I was just like, you know what, this is cool. I got to ride along with a buddy of mine, and I was, this is pretty neat. Like, I think I could do this.
Yeah.
And I like the adrenaline that kind of happened to it. I like kind of being to myself and my own squad too. That was awesome. It's like,
Yeah.
hey, I don't have to deal with all these people all the time.
Kind of your own boss.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's your office.
Yep.
So I enjoyed that. Ended up getting hired on, put myself through the academy for policing as well. Ended up getting hired on right when I was about to graduate. Had 3 or 4 different offers from agencies. So I was like, you know what? I just need a job. At that time, I really didn't care what agency I worked for. Probably should have looked into it a little bit more whenever you're kind of thinking about that.
Yeah.
But it ended up starting off great. I got hired on. It was fun. I loved patrol. I had some great FTOs. Got to see a lot of stuff that, well, as a police officer, you see more than the normal person out there would see. But it was cool. I got to experience a lot, and it was a good time. Was on patrol for about 2.5, 3 years. And then I got the call in to be a part of community relations. So they kind of knew I enjoyed doing some of that stuff while on patrol. They did that whole lip sync thing. That's when that whole fad came out. So we were part of the lip sync video. They asked me to kind of run it. I picked the song, picked how we're going to do it, and really just ran with it from there. He was actually a part of it too. Had like 180,000 views on it. And they were like, hey, you might be good in front of people. So I was like, oh, okay, let's go. So we ended up doing some stuff with community relations. I enjoyed helping out the kids. I really enjoyed that. I liked going to schools and really just reassuring them that we're there for them. And and I started just kind of noticing there wasn't a whole lot going on out there as far as programs, and we needed new programs. So at that time, I started just kind of mind developing a new, more relative program for kids, to help them engage with first responders, police, fire, everybody, and that's how Patrol Stories kind of came out.
So when you was going for your police work stuff, you didn't have anybody in your family, nobody that was an influence towards first responders or anything?
There was a girlfriend at the time that she had cousins and a brother-in-law that both worked for agencies over here.
Okay.
And growing up, I was also, played Little League baseball, and one of my good friends at the time that played with me, his dad was assistant chief in the colony. So that was actually the first job I applied for. I was like, hey, you know what? I want to try to do this. It was before I was licensed and did any of that other stuff. I was just going in. And kind of the same situation. I hit all the top scores and everything, but they were most agencies are hoping you're licensed. They don't want to send you to the academy
Right.
for the most part. So I was always beat out by like one guy who had his certs. And so I was like, you know what, I'm going to just put myself through the academy. But yeah, they really just kind of coached me into it, said, hey, this might be something you're interested in. I mean, the fire side is one side. It's awesome, way different. People like you over there
Yeah.
and people hate you over here. But it's, they both have their perks, both have their benefits.
So when you were going through, you put yourself through an academy.
Mhm.
Was it at a college?
Collin County was for police. I went through Collin County's police academy, and then I actually went through Aubrey's fire academy.
Oh, okay. So you went through both sides.
Mhm.
Damn. Okay. While you were going through, like, how long was your police academy? How long was your fire?
The fire, I think, was close to a year. Policing was more about 6 to 8 months.
Okay. And were you going like 5 days a week, weekends off?
So for fire, I actually had a full-time job too. So both of them actually were PM classes, except for the weekends. Like we would have to go in on the weekends for all day deals. Yeah, it was just, there were two full-time jobs pretty much, going to work and then going to class.
Okay. Yeah. The only reason I ask is there's some people out there that like, like where I went, my department has its own academy.
Mhm.
And oh, my ears just kind of switched there. Then there's other academies. This is the education portion. There's academies that are done by the department that you're working for. They have their own academy, and then there's college campus ones that they have, or you go to a county that has their own police department like you're talking about, and several agencies will be there all at one time. So if you're looking to get into police work, these are things to consider. Some you have to put yourself through, pay for yourself. Some like mine, if you're going to their police academy for that city, you're an employee. You're already being paid. So that was nice. And while doing that, just for my military members out there, don't forget your GI Bill usually translate over to any fire or police academy. So you can utilize that. All right, cool. So you get in, you get to your police department. You really don't have a background in it. So now you have to decide what type of police officer you want to be.
Mhm.
So as you're there, you said that they kind of saw you had a knack for the community engagement stuff. Some people call them neighborhood patrol officers. Some people call them community policing officers, stuff like that. Typically, those positions, if you're at a larger department, that is all you do. You're not necessarily handling calls as they come in. Your job is to be that liaison between the community and the patrol officers. But smaller agencies, you do both.
Yep.
You're the community liaison and you're taking calls because you don't have the luxury of having that many officers. So in your case, you start getting out. Did you see any other jobs that interested you? Were you like, oh, I want to be a narc officer. I want to be a gang officer. Or SWAT would be cool. Like, were you considering any of that stuff?
Well, we had like an organized retail theft group.
Okay,
At
like
the
a
time.
property crimes thing?
Yes,
Yeah.
and they were called street crimes, and I loved it. I loved what they did. They were, your plainclothes cops that went around, and
Yep.
where we're from, it's primarily retail. A lot of the problems that we were having were retail thefts, and organized crime thefts. So
Now you're in my wheelhouse. I'm
Yeah.
a property crimes detective that runs a team that we do all
Yeah.
of that. Yeah.
I loved it, and I
Yeah.
loved what they did. And the coolest thing about where I ended up being is we shared the same office. So street crimes and community relations shared the same substations.
Okay.
So and on patrol, I was one of those active guys, man. I loved getting out there. I loved working with them on, stings involving thefts or
Yeah.
whatever. I just loved it, man. I love
It's
catching
fun.
people, right?
Yeah.
It's great to catch the bad guy.
Yeah.
And so we always stayed pretty active, and that's where I kind of met him too. He was actually getting trained. He got out of training not too long after I did. So
So you're the senior officer here.
Well, hang on a second.
Yes,
Hang on a
yes,
second.
I am.
No, you're not.
No.
Well,
No.
senior but higher ranking, maybe.
So he has more time on than I did because he came from another
Oh,
agency.
Okay.
But
Prior.
yes, absolutely. Even today, and we'll get into patrol stories now, but I call him my assistant, right? He does
Oh,
all the
no.
things that I kind of need him to do.
Oh,
But
The assist.
no.
but just policing was awesome. I loved patrol. So whenever they asked me to do community relations, I was kind of like, because also in some of those units, you'll have officers that, they're just kind of the checked out guys. Let's just be honest. Sometimes depending on which unit you're in, you might find some of those people that are just kind of hanging out. They're just
Now-
collecting a check.
What year are we talking about here?
So this was right around 2020, I
Okay.
believe. So we're getting in the midst of all the riots
I was
and
gonna
all the
say,
stuff that's happening.
something
out
to
there.
consider. This is a perspective for the community to hear. When we're talking about lazy officers and stuff like that, it sounds like you're the same type of guy I am. I just, it's not in me to sit idle.
Yeah.
I can't. Even if I'm not chasing a bad guy, I don't want to sit. I gotta go do something. Some officers, just because of the climate for police work right now, they don't want to risk being the next viral video, because even if you are doing your job and you're doing it all the right way, it just takes a bad camera angle to at least get an investigation started, which is a big stressor. And it ain't worth it to these guys, some of these guys. And I don't blame them. Me personally, I can't be that guy. I'm going to keep chasing them till the wheels fall off. I just can't help it. Maybe I do need to get burned one time, have a close call, got to deal with IA, deal with the investigation side, and maybe that'll calm me down. Who knows? 17 years of doing this, I haven't calmed down yet. But that is something for the community to consider. If you're like, oh, why are they just handling calls? They should be, if they're not handling a call, they should be out there doing something proactive.
Right.
Well, there's a whole counterpart to that some people don't want you being proactive. They think you're out there trying to dig stuff up that doesn't exist.
Right.
Why are you running my license plate? Like, some people think you're not allowed to run their plate. Definitely are, guys. So that's something to consider. Sounds like you as a proactive guy, and now that I know that you're using property crimes, that's awesome. Before we get going down patrol stories, I want to get Mr. Carter. I almost said Clark. Mr. Carter. Get his background, and then we'll jump in, because I think you guys are a cute couple, and I think you probably came up with this together. So,
Well, I'm from El Paso, Texas. I was born and raised there.
that's why you talk slower.
You got to understand me better.
Yeah.
No, I was in youth ministry before I became an officer. Did that for a couple years, and you mentioned about a family member or a tragic event that put you into policing. That is exactly kind of what happened on two fronts. My uncle, who just recently passed away, he was a commander over there in El Paso, and I was always brought up around police officers. But I didn't pull the trigger on being a cop yet until one of my best friends got hit and killed by a DWI.
Okay.
It was a soldier, came in, drunk, hit her, and I was like, you know what? I want to do DWIs. I want to get into policing. And when I did my first DWI after the academy, which was a big city academy, which they put us through, you're employed there now. First DWI, I was like, oh man, I don't want to ever do DWIs again.
They're long.
They're long. And I never shied away from it, but yeah, it's for a class B, usually a class B. It's a lot more paperwork than it should be.
So for those listening, this is what happens when you do a DWI. You get them pulled over. You start to realize the signs and symptoms. If they weren't already there, if they weren't weaving or doing whatever, you see the bloodshot eyes, you smell the alcohol. Well, now you're like, shit, I got to do DWI. And if you're like, well, why is that a big deal? Well, here's the deal. It's a class B misdemeanor. And you end up doing close to, if you're not if you don't do these all the time, there's certain units they just do DWI, so they can get them knocked out in 45 minutes. That's a person that knows what they're doing all the time. Now, if you don't do a DWI, you have to be very specific on every single step. You cannot create your own shit. It has to be
Standard.
It is, and it has to be done in the right environment. And everything, there's just a lot to something that could be dismissed based on some BS, something real quick. Whether you don't hold the pen, 6 to 8 inches away from the eyes, and if you're 2 feet away versus a foot away, whatever. There's all these little factors. So with it all said and done, with an officer that doesn't do this that often, it could be minimum, I would say, 1.5 to 2 hours to generally 3 to 4 hours. And that's if you don't have to do a blood draw.
Yeah.
So normally we just do breath, but if they refuse, in Texas anyway, then we have to do a blood draw. So you have to get a blood draw warrant, and then you have to take them to the hospital, and you got to wait your turn, and then they got to draw the blood. I mean, it is a big process for something that is probably going to be knocked down if it's their first offense or whatever it is. And it's great. You got them off the road.
Yeah.
I don't want to downplay that, but there are other avenues you could do. It's not a shall arrest offense. It's not a felony. So you could get them another ride. You can take them home. I mean, there's a bunch of different things you could possibly do, but then at the end of the day, if they get hurt later on, then it's kind of on you. Or if they decide you take them home and then they get in another car and then they go drive because they're drunk, it's a big risk. So you have to understand both sides of the house when it comes to a DWI, and they take forever. Yeah. So that's
and it is potentially life-saving every DWI or every stop. And that was just, I mean, it ran rampant in El Paso. There was a lot of drunk driving, a lot of manslaughter accidents and everything. So, but after the first year of probation was done, I got into patrol, which was probably the most fun. And when I was doing patrol, I got attention from our burglary unit, which was our TAC guys. And then we went into the gang unit, which was probably even more fun. And that was probably foot chases every day. And I mean, it was just a blast being around the gang unit. So after the gang unit, we went into dignitary protection, which was the special operations group that trains with SWAT and bomb squad. Bomb squad was the one I really wanted to be a part of, but you had to be I think 5 to 7 years before you got into that. And here I am at year 2 or 3.
Okay.
So after the 3rd year, I didn't want to be an FTO. And my sergeant at the time came in and said, "Hey, we need FTOs." And I'm like, I'm still very young. I'm learning this thing. And she says, "Well, as an FTO, you're still learning as you go because you're going to have to take this rookie and you're going to have to go do it yourself too." All right, fine. So I became an FTO there in El Paso. And again, with the gang unit and TAC and all that experience I had, once I hit the 5-year mark, I wanted to come to the DFW area. I've always wanted to come over here. So I came over here with my family, lateraled over here to the North Dallas area, went back on patrol. That's where I met this little fella. And so when we were on patrol, me and him, we would always compete for if it was traffic stops, arrests, calls for service reports, we would always be at the top. Him and I and another officer who was a state trooper out of Massachusetts, we would always be at the top. Well, when he went to community relations, he left me, and I went to CID.
Okay.
And I was, again, the lowest man on the totem pole, so they gave me the crime that no one wanted to investigate, which was fraud.
Oh,
and in this area, fraud was huge. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to have to learn all this stuff.
No training.
No training in fraud.
I try to tell people that's a problem with detective work. A lot of this stuff you have to learn just through trial and error.
Yes.
You don't go to fraud school. You don't go to property crime school.
Yes.
If you ever want to fix your departments, guys, that's one thing that you could step up with to help fix your departments is get them specialized training for their detectives, because detectives are winging it.
And it's exactly what you said. I was there. Here's the fraud stuff. I'm not used to it. I learned by myself through trial and error. I do enjoy the property side of things, which included fraud too, because that's true investigation. capers crimes are great, but here's your victim, here's your suspect usually.
Yeah.
And for property stuff, you're like, okay, I have to dig into this now,
Mhm.
like actual investigation.
All you have is property and a victim.
Yeah, and you know, subpoenas, search warrants. I loved that.
Yeah.
And it was a new way of policing for me. So when I got good at fraud, I started getting some people, which usually ended up in Dallas or New York or Nigeria was another one where all my
Yeah.
suspects were. And so I would do that, and then I was like, man, you know, if I can get certified in a bunch of these other stuff, then this is great for maybe after career.
Yeah.
I can go do some stuff in fraud.
Especially private sector stuff.
For,
yeah.
Yes, and I probably shouldn't have said that out loud because other detectives heard that and was like, you know what, that's a great idea. So I got bumped from fraud, and I was like, all right, whatever. And I went to auto theft, and
Okay.
that was that was a lot more fun. It got me out of the office.
Did you guys do the joint task force?
We did. I got to do a lot with Fort Worth. They had their
Yeah. The auto theft task
yes,
force.
auto theft task force. Yeah. So I got to work with them for a couple weeks straight.
Yeah, that's
and then-
Fort Worth, Dallas, Arlington, Grand Prairie. I mean, it
Yes.
is. So when we're talking joint task force, it is
Yes.
legitimately throughout the county, and they're bad. I got to
Those
do
guys are awesome.
I got to do a catalytic convert. I was a detective, and I kept noticing a trend of the catalytic converter thefts. You know, we're having I was getting 2 cases a weekend versus, there's 15, 17 other detectives. They're getting 2 cases a weekend. So I started noticing this huge trend just on our side of the city. Then I couldn't help myself. I started digging into it. I'm like, we have a problem.
Yeah.
We have a big problem.
Well, the auto theft world took me outside of our agency, and
Yeah.
that was what was awesome about it. Getting up at 2 a.m, go to South Dallas, trackers. I mean, I loved that.
Yeah.
It was great. And then I got assigned those catalytic converter thefts too, and I was the only one working them. And I'm like, okay, man, this area has been hit. Oh, I hated catalytic
Yeah.
converter thefts. Because it's so quick, and then with COVID ramping up, everyone wearing masks, you're like, okay, cool, I got someone on video,
Yeah.
and he's wearing a mask, and you're like, oh, never mind. Now we have to work really hard with each other agencies
Yeah.
to, get that intel towards each other, and okay, now we have a pattern, and LPR is great.
Yep.
That was always a solvability factor
Yep.
in our cases, and that was fun. Detective work was fun. It's a good aspect of things. It was good for the family life too when it came to different how patrol graveyards was.
Yeah.
And that's the story.
Yeah.
And when we do on our off days, that's when I was helping out this guy with
Okay.
this program. So
Gotcha. So in your fraud, property crimes, auto theft task force, what was your favorite?
out of everything, including El Paso,
Yeah.
working with the gang unit.
Working with the gang unit?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, like I said, detective work was fun. I loved search warrants and everything. That because I mean, with helping even burglary crimes, uh, having a search warrant for an apartment was okay. It's not going to be that bad. And then you go into the apartment, you're like, oh gosh, that's a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
That's a lot of stuff to deal with. And
Nice. My cousin, he just texted me. He did this. Have you guys ever heard of 75 Hard? Okay, so 75 Hard is a program, and this is kind of off subject, but I'm proud of my cousin. He basically what you do is for 75 days you work out twice a day for an hour, and no alcohol, and you have to read a book. You got to read so much a day, but it's for 75 days. Really the diet isn't it. It's not the food. Like you can eat as much little as you want, but you still have to work out for the 2 hours, regardless and stuff like that. And he just told me he finally completed it. So that's not an easy feat, especially because he's like me. I drink, obviously, but he's been the same way. Patterns, habits, and stuff like that. So for him to work out twice a day,
anytime you complete something, that's
for
arduous.
75 days,
Yeah.
that is a bitch. So he just texted me. He's like, "Hey, I finished, boy." I was like, "All right, congratulations."
Don't drink.
yeah, exactly. Okay, so between that, it's kind of cool because you guys' experience is very similar. Now, when you were working at El Paso, did you get to work with your uncle? Was it? Or did he retire?
He retired a year when I was on probation.
Okay.
So in El Paso, there was different regional commands, like similar to most big cities.
Yeah.
He was on the west side regional command, and I was on the east side, which the east side had one of the biggest zip codes in the country, so it was very populated.
Mhm.
So it was just call to call to call. So there wasn't a lot of proactive thing. It was just like, hey, you see something, okay, arrest. See something over here, next call, next call, next call.
Yeah.
When we came to the North Texas area, the proactive meter just went up the roof. You know, you can actually go out and on the tollways or the highway and just start
Yeah.
knocking these cars down and working with the street crimes unit. Or I mean, we were big in the at the mall there, the outlet mall, and we would just constantly get someone coming in, and we just, okay, that person right there, I can already tell. Yep, boom,
Yeah.
let's go get them.
If you're law enforcement, stop and listen to me right now. If you're a police department that does not have an LPR system, Insight is offering the first 10 agencies, that means one agency apiece, gets one camera for free. You have to tell them that Two Cops, One Donut sent you. You heard me right. If you're a police agency that does not have an LPR system yet, or does have an LPR system, and you're not happy with the product you have, Insight is offering you a free camera. No strings attached, and they will install it. I have 10 to give out. Tell them Two Cops, One Donut sent you, or reach out to me, and I will get you in contact. If you're a business owner or an HOA, please stop and listen to me right now. If you're just listening to the audio, do yourself a favor and watch the YouTube version of this episode to get a visual of what I'm about to tell you. I want to tell you guys about Insight LPR. It's a license plate reader. If your agency, community, or business is looking to invest in LPR to help solve and deter crime or to make your community safer, Insight LPR has my vote of confidence. I've met with their team. They know their LPRs, guys. They're the real deal. They bring over 75 years of collective experience to building LPR cameras and the software that supports communities across the country. The other thing I really like about this team is how much they listen to law enforcement. They understand the importance of working together with law enforcement and getting their input as they build and innovate products and their service to match the needs of law enforcement. In other words, when I complain or have suggestions to make their damn camera better, they actually do it. The Insight LPR team is extremely passionate and takes pride in their product development, which makes their cameras some of the most durable cameras in the market. For the gear nerds out there, what that means is this stuff's made of military grade aluminum and is nitrogen purged, whatever that means. This design makes the cameras rugged and able to withstand harsh weather elements. Here's the big selling point for me. Their nighttime scan accuracy is higher than most of the leading competitors. In my opinion, this is what sets them apart. As we know, the majority of crimes occur at night, so it's critical to have high scan accuracy at night. Insight's cameras check the box with the nighttime plate read accuracy greater than 96%. 96%, guys. That's pretty freaking high. If your community is looking to invest in LPR technology, reach out to one of their experts today or reach out to me. Tell them Two Cops, One Donut sent you. Yeah, you start to develop an eye for it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, very quick.
My FTO, when I got to down here, the first place we went, he worked a part-time at the mall. So he's like, let's go up there. He's like, we'll probably grab lunch or something because he get a discount. And I was like, all right, cool. So we walk in. He's talking to the security guys that work it every day, loss prevention guys. And as we're standing there, he's like, see those kids over there? I'm like, yeah. He's like, they're pocketing stuff right now. And I was like, really? I was prior LE, but never. We weren't allowed to work part-times or anything like that. So I had never heard of a cop working at a mall, on a part-time and stuff like that. So I didn't know what he was talking about. I look and I'm like, you sure? And he's like, oh yeah. He's like, they're putting clothing down their pants. I was like, really? Okay. And sure as shit, as soon as they stepped out of the store, we stopped them and started to talk to him. And now I am good at telling when you're going to rabbit on me. So I seen the eyes. And yeah, he starts looking around, and I positioned myself just as he is about to break for it. And I've done judo and jiu-jitsu since like 06. And at that time, so we're talking almost 8-9 years of regular training. And I foot swept this kid straight to the ground, got on him, and your FTO is evaluating you. He knew as a prior officer, but that doesn't mean shit for the community listening out there. Sometimes you get an officer who's been an officer, but if they've been an officer at a tiny agency that doesn't get a lot of action, or maybe he was a lazy cop, you never know what product you're going to. So just because they're from another agency doesn't mean they're going to be worth a damn. So my FTO was trying to make sure I was going to be worth a damn. And he goes, I have no worries about you. Right after
That's
that.
always nice.
Yeah, it was a good feeling. And he goes, he's like, we can cut you loose whenever. He's like, your officer safety is on point. He's like, that's all I need.
As an FTO, that's always the biggest thing to look for. Is that one, officer safety. Two, if you can go hands on.
Yeah.
And
If
that
you're
was-
game, like
yes.
there's nothing worse than getting you're in a fight and the other officer's just kind of like,
Yes.
like hesitating to get into it.
Yeah. You're in a new level if you get into it with that officer, and you're like,
Yes.
okay, now, because every officer sees that, every officer talks about it,
Yep.
and you're at another level.
Yeah, especially for the rookies out there. I know there's a lot of cops that listen to this show as well. I say a lot for me. If you're out there and you're just trying to you're always, navigation's always an issue if you're not from that city. That was horrendous for me. That was my worst issue. But knowing your job, like, when you have an offense, when you don't, and then officer safety, going hands-on. Like, that's what all the other officers, that's probably the only thing these other cops are watching you and making sure you answer your calls. But as soon as you do have a hands-on situation, it spreads like wildfire because everybody wants to know, are the rookies going to back me up? Are they going to have my back?
Yeah.
Are they going to be hesitant? Hesitation gets people hurt, including the cops, the civilians, and the bad guys.
Absolutely.
So I'm all about, people are like, who cares if the bad guys get hurt? I care.
Yeah.
I don't want anybody to get hurt. Why? It makes my job easier.
Yeah.
If I can make my job as easy as possible, that's what I want to do.
Yeah, verbal judo is always number one.
Right? No, we don't call it verbal judo anymore.
not
sir.
anymore.
Now it's de-escalation.
Oh, that's right.
what
Yeah,
it's
the
called.
training.
Yes, transparency, de-escalation. These are the trigger words. So, yeah, it's verbal judo. That's all it's ever been. Just knowing how to talk to people. Okay, let's get into patrol stories. So you guys are community engaged. You got that connection there. You obviously saw an issue before this all got started. What were the issues you were seeing? What were police lacking when it came to community relations?
Really, a lot of it had to do with, when I got into community relations again, it was 2020. So COVID had just started coming around.
There were no community relations.
Yeah, everything was shut down.
Yeah.
And so you had to be creative into how you were going to still be able to do your job and impact the community in a positive way, without being in face to face with people. So I started doing, videos, kind of just explaining police life. But I wanted to do it differently. I wanted to do it to where people could laugh about it. Because there's a lot of things as a cop that you do that it's not going to make it on CSI or all these cool shows. Like, it's just the weird calls that you get day to day.
Yeah.
So I started saying, hey, I'm going to just retell the calls that we got or that we did on patrol. And used a funny Snapchat filter or something just to kind of separate myself from whoever it is.
Okay.
And that's where Officer Maxwell, who we'll get into in just a little bit, came from. I wanted to create kind of an alter ego of somebody just telling police stories. And it was really a lot about it just making myself laugh. Some of it, it was going to be intended for the community and people to learn a little bit about us as humans. But for the most part, having a great personality or just being able to laugh on the job is probably the best part of a job. Being able to laugh with your friends.
Yeah.
That's how I got with this guy and other people at our agency. We're just like, hey, who can make fun of each other the best? And we just, that's kind of the brotherhood that you think that you're going to get when you go to an agency. Now, some agencies that brotherhood's great. Some you have to work on it a little bit.
Yeah.
But with us, when I met him, we kind of really kicked it off as far as, we knew what we wanted to do. We had that personality. We could throw jokes back at each other and nobody would, take it to heart. Had thick skin. We had fun. And that's what made the job fun.
Yeah.
Because 10, 12-hour days, those are long days. And so you have to find ways to make yourself, not bored out of your mind or keep your mind busy.
Yeah.
So we'd always try to respond to calls at the same time. We'd go do fun things. If he was sent somewhere, I would try to, even though I was on the other side of the city, I'd be like, hey, I'm going to come that way too.
Yeah.
Just to do whatever.
So you'd neglect your beat. A call would come out
Yeah,
and somebody else would have to shag your
Yeah.
call. I get it. Yeah, that's cool.
It wasn't that far.
It wasn't that far. Yeah. The city we're in, you can get anywhere within 5 minutes. So
Oh,
it doesn't
okay,
really-
okay.
it's not like Fort Worth
Okay,
or,
I
or
got you.
Dallas or one of these giant
Yeah.
cities.
No worries.
But it was one of those things where, you wanted to, who you work with is a big part of policing. Like the team that you're around, the
Oh,
people
for
on
sure,
your
yeah.
shift, having a great shift can make your days go by
Yeah.
awesome and you have a good time. Also, just kind of getting back to your FTO thing, same thing for FTOs, right? Like people trying to get into law enforcement, being a great FTO, you really help people propel themselves to be the best officer that they can
Yep.
be.
You shape an officer's attitude towards the department,
Mhm.
whether you know it or not. If you have a salty fucking
And they're out there.
veteran FTO that hates everything about his job and what he's doing, that's going to be the and I have seen a 1-2 year officer salty as fuck, and I'm like, dude, you have zero time on this department and you are that angry already. Like, you need to reset. Like, you got to step back. And that goes into the attitude, exactly what you're talking about, the morale of a team. I'm a big believer in morale. And I know police officers that think morale. Explain to me what morale is. How is that a thing? I'm like, it is a thing. I'm like, not only is it a thing just in general, scientifically, it is a thing. We are biologically, I'm going to get a little sciencey on you. I am not a doctor, by the way, or a scientist, but biologically, we are designed for cooperation. Cooperation is basically at a fundamental level morale. So we would never have been able to survive as a human species alone. This, like you said, you like to do in studio. This actually releases dopamine and serotonin, which is what drives us to work together. Those are the cooperation chemicals in your body, where endorphins and dopamine, those are survival instinct stuff, like, fight or flight, things like that. So that serotonin and oxytocin, that's what I meant to say. Those two that's what brings us together. And that's what makes you love each other. Things like that too. That is morale in a nutshell to me. And when you work with a team that's positive, and I work with a guy that's like, man, we should do this for the community. Like, I think it'd be a cool idea. I'm like, it reminds me why I started doing the job. Yeah. And then your mind starts to flip to that positive instead of the typical cynical cop. Even if you're the most positive cop, you still have a little bit of cynicism. Mm-hmm. I do all the time. I'm like, I'll get the call. I'm like, oh, weird, it's over there again. Like, that's
and it's repetitive.
Yeah.
It's very repetitive.
Yeah. So it's the cynicism in us, which the dark humor, stress reliever, stuff like that. So I don't want to totally get rid of it. But to your point, it does make a difference, the type of team you have. And if it only takes, it's funny how it works. It takes one cancerous dude to ruin a whole team quickly. But all it takes is one positive leader to kill that cancer quick. Mm-hmm. And a leader doesn't have to be your sergeant. It doesn't have to be your FTO. It can be anybody on the team. So sorry for interrupting, but I think that's
true. It's good. And it's good for people to know, police work is, that's your squad. That's your family. You spend a lot more time, honestly, with the people on your shift than you might with your own family. Yep. So to have a good relationship with at least the majority of the people on your shift makes things go by a lot easier and keeps things light. And I think that was great. Me having no police experience. Now the fire experience was different. Like I got to see some of the medical calls and some of that stuff, and that brotherhood was different than the one that I felt like there.
Type thing with firefighters.
I get
those guys. Yeah, Keith Hanks, that's for you, buddy.
So, but it was just one of those things that I didn't know what to expect when I became a cop. I saw like what everybody else sees on TV. There's this great brotherhood. They're laughing, they're joking about things. And what's that Jake Gyllenhaal movie? It's like
End of Watch.
End of Watch. One of the greatest movies for me. I was like, man, I like this. It's cool. It's and that teamwork aspect of things really kind of made things fun for me. So we would just go bouncing around call to call with each other. And then some of those, like I said, off base calls, we just try to recite them in some way. And I would just sit in my car and film myself telling a story, reenacting whatever it is that we just went through. And then people started seeing it at my department, like, hey, can you put this on our department social media side, or can you do this out here? This really kind of shows a different side of police work, where people think you're just this stern military guy or whatever. I'm straight face. I got to be this way. This shows a completely different side. You're laughing at yourself practically. And I'm like, okay, so let's do it. I posted one of my little messages on their social media site, and it got like immediate like 30,000 views and all these different likes, and it just went crazy. The city loved it. And I was just like, okay, crazy. What are you going to do now? And so it just kept spitballing from that point.
Yeah.
But what really kind of got me going into making this an actual thing, making patrol stories more than just an officer retelling stories, was going to those schools. When you're in community relations, a lot of those officers are also the ones that go to your preschools or, your daycares to talk about simple safety, 911 safety stuff. And this was during that pretty hostile time in 2000 and 2021. So kids were raising their hands, officer, don't shoot me, crying when we just walked in. They were terrified of us. Yeah. And I was just like, really? Like, the city we're in is not one of those. The community really rallied behind the first responders, and different cities are way different. Like,
Yeah.
you'll have cities that completely hate police, but then you'll have some that, they're going to back you. And our cities backed us, but I was still seeing kids that were just terrified of me. And so I was like, hey, how do I change this? How do I make this easier for them? Or how do I show them that I'm not to be feared? So I started telling those same stories to the kids while giving my little presentation about what it is we did.
Now you're not telling them like, so I arrived on this homicide.
Yeah.
No.
Not like the old
these,
way.
These are seriously stories like,
Yeah.
getting called to, snakes being in somebody's
Lord.
houses, or getting called to, I got called to helping ducks cross the street. Like,
Uh-huh.
it's important stuff.
Yeah.
But, some of these things, like, I would just go retell it to the kiddos using that character, and they would see the character on TV and they'd be like, he looks just like you. Like, where is he? Can we meet him? And I was like, okay, so I need to
Now I
start
gotta
taking this another.
get a furry suit made.
Yeah. So now I have to take this another step further. I have to give them someone to actually see and high five and
Yeah.
fist bump or whatever,
Like McGruff the crime dog.
like McGruff.
Yeah.
But here's the kind of funny thing about patrol stories is McGruff really isn't taught much anymore. Some agencies still use him.
No. For
Dare's kind of
Faded.
like a fart in the
Yeah,
wind, kind
yeah.
of gone. But there's not a whole lot of programs out there. So I was like, okay, how can I develop this into doing something bigger and bigger and bigger? So the very first thing I ended up doing was talking to my chief. I said, hey, chief, I plan on making something, but the thing I'm going to make is for all policing. I want this to help agencies everywhere. I want to be able to translate to everybody. It's not going to be your city's thing. And he was like, okay, if it's good for police, it's good for me. Let's do it. Myself, my wife, and I funded the entire project to get it going, which is about $40K.
I know what that's like.
Yeah, it's a lot of money. We're paying for lawyers, we're paying for licensing, trademarks, all the equipment that's going to be used, the suits themselves, which is, mascot suits are very expensive.
Mm-hmm.
But we ended up doing all that stuff and starting to really implement it into my day-to-day stuff. Chief was like, okay, how can we use this for the city? Birthdays, a lot of these police departments during COVID time, when people couldn't go outside or celebrate, they were doing parades, police parades. We'd have a bunch of squad cars just come with their lights on, just passing by someone's house saying happy birthday on the intercom or something. Well, I had a suit, so I would jump in the back of a Hummer, throw the suit on, and wave to the kids, or jump out while they're outside and toss a football while we're outside and have fun with them.
In the suit?
In the suit.
So you can do it in the suit.
Yeah.
Okay. I was wondering how malleable it was.
It ended up being like a really cool thing. So I started doing more and more things like that. I really wanted to impact the community in a big way. Like, how could I bring cops together with our community? Because let's just be honest, for the most part, when cops are called, it's because something bad happened. So you don't really get, unless you have that proactive officer, which they are out there, that, will stop and play basketball with some kids, or can do that because their call load maybe isn't so high. We wanted to create that. So I was able to put together city events involving the character and the brand that I had started building to help more and more community members get together with the police department.
So as you're doing that, you're coordinating with your department saying, hey, this is what we're doing. I need you to send some guys to this.
Yes.
Okay.
And it's very different because, like I said, in some of these agencies, different units, maybe they've just been there for a very long time and they kind of just got stale in what they were doing, or everything just came monotonous. They weren't the rah-rah go-getting kind of guy. So I was the new kid on the block when I got into my unit, and I was just ready to go. I wanted to do stuff. Like you said, you don't want to sit around and do nothing.
Yeah.
Because those days are long.
And that's going to rub senior officers the wrong way.
Yes.
Because they're going to see a rookie come in, rookie for most city police is 0 to 5 years, guys. So it does happen. You see somebody come in and they are full of piss and vinegar, so to speak. And I've always been the type of guy to try to foster that, because you're going to lose that energy at some point.
Yep.
And, it's not that it's gone forever. It just inevitable. You can't stay up here that forever. You do hit your lulls, and then you remember why you do what you do or why you're doing the program, and you get back up here. So I foster it. I'm like, fuck, go get it, kid.
Right.
Like, knock it out. So, but you will get the officers are like, how many calls this guy handled? And he's over here trying to do community police stuff. What's he know about police work? So you're going to get the pushback from your own people. I was, believe it or not, at the time, I probably had 15, 16 years of police work under my belt. I was nervous doing the podcast about my peers.
Right.
What their impression was going to be. Oh, he's just trying to be one of those fucking TikTok cops. You know, he's probably you're going to go dance now. You're going to go dance, you know, and that is the type of feedback you get. I will say I have gotten nothing but positive feedback. Every once in a while when I come into like a class, like, you know, mandatory training or whatever, I'll go, oh, here comes Hollywood.
Right.
Like, I'll get those jokes, which is fine. They're just busting my balls, but.
Well, that's where you and I differ.
Yes.
So our stories will be a lot different when it comes to that.
So, but I know exactly what you're saying because I remember hearing people say that stuff about some rookies that come in that were very active in the community, and they were active before they were cops.
Right.
And then when they got in, they had this niche and this relationship with certain communities. They got pulled into NPO spots. And you don't normally get an NPO spot until you've been there a while.
Right.
So now you're hearing these rookies getting pulled in, and instantly the hate starts.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, and keep in mind, you know, we, like I told you before, we did the lip sync thing while we were rookies at that time. Like that was within a first year of us being there because nobody else wanted to do it.
Yeah.
Like you said, there was the very stone cops that like, man, we don't need to do that. You know, that lip sync thing is stupid.
Yeah.
You know, it's not, I'm like, hey, all these other cities have hundreds of thousands of people and they're really rallying behind it. Your communities are rallying behind seeing you as a human.
See it.
Yeah.
Right. They're seeing you as something different. So when we did that, I was the face of that video. I was the whole person in there doing the whole thing. So a lot of people in the community started, even when I was on patrol, hey, that's the guy from the lip sync video. Hey, that's that guy. That's that guy. And it's just kind of my I guess notoriety, or the people that knew me in the community, people just started knowing who I was. So when I would show up, they'd be like, oh man, that's that guy. I loved what you did, man. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And then when they would see us at schools, from my background and, you know, singing and whatnot, like I said, I'm not afraid to be in front of people. I like it. Yeah. So I can go in front of kids and just be goofy. I don't care. Like, I don't care what anybody's saying to me.
Which goes against the culture of policing.
Yes.
And that's an important thing. We hate change. We hate any sort of accolades. And I'm just saying in general. And we don't like the light to be shined on us. We don't. That's just how police work is culturally. However, I have flipped my mind on this pretty early in my career because I'm looking at the bigger picture. The bigger picture is community engagement. Whether the community is being negative about me or being positive, whatever it is, and let's say the lip sync thing, that was generally loved by most in this community and hated by cops. Why was it hated by cops? Because the way they're looking at it is at face value. Oh, you're just trying to get attention. Mm-hmm. Yep. No, I am trying to get some sort of connection with the community in the long run.
Right.
And if I do get in a fight and somebody recognizes me, maybe that citizen will help me out. Maybe that citizen will at least be a witness that wouldn't have been prior to that. So we've been siloed from the community for so long because we don't want to go and brag. We don't it's hard to say. Like I it's not to brag. It's to inform the community the stuff their cops are doing that their cops are never going to talk about.
Right.
Because culturally they're not supposed to.
Well, there's a lot of if you stay on long enough, even in the military and policing, you know, it desensitizes you a little bit.
Oh,
and those officers that, you know, happy-go-lucky before they were officers, you know, through the years of what they see, what they do, they become a little bit more stern.
Yeah.
And then, you know, we don't like change. So when someone comes in fresh and wants a new idea, it's like,
yeah.
And then eventually, you know, it is a beatdown when you can't have the support of your troops. Like when your own people don't support you and you're trying to do something, eventually that fire that you had when you first went in there, it does fizzle out a little bit. You're like, why am I even doing this? Nobody cares. You know, and then you start to kind of downplay what it is that you're doing in your own head. Yeah. So I didn't want to do that. But when I got into it, I really wanted to make a difference. I really wanted to do something different. Yep. So I started putting together actually community events outside of just visiting schools. I came up with a concept called Popcorn with Police, where I was just like, hey, how can I bring as many people together with my agency as possible? Well, what people don't understand is there's a lot of families out there that don't have a lot of money to spend, but they want to do family ventures. They want to do something with their family.
Yeah.
So what can you give them as a city or a community to help them come together? So I was just put together Popcorn with Police, which is just showing a movie. Hey, let's invite the community to come watch a movie with police officers. I got a good couple sponsorships from some good movie theaters to donate some popcorn and what else.
Yeah.
So you got to eat popcorn, have fun with police, and just have a good time.
And you guys are a nonprofit, correct?
Now we're yes, we're
Yeah,
a 501c3.
Nice.
But at the time I was doing this for the agency. Like this was going to be presented by my agency.
Okay.
So Officer Maxwell and part of what we were doing was going to be included in some of that. But for the most part, I just wanted to create community events. So how can I bring enough people together? My unit at the time, they were some of those guys that were like, man, why is this guy out here doing all this stuff? It's making me look bad. I've been here for 7 years and I just watch Netflix all day, whatever.
Yeah.
I wanted to do something different.
That was Mike, right?
No, it wasn't him. It wasn't him. But there's those people. So I kind of my mission got downplayed. It's like, hey, Justin, you don't have to work too hard on that. It's only you'll get maybe 50 people show up. Don't worry about it. The first event that I did, I had like 400 and something people show up, and it was a line outside. And we just held it in a small public library because they had a little theater kind of in there.
That shows you right away that
Well, they
it
told you
worked.
it's wanted.
They told you no one was going to show up, though.
Yeah, and people gravitated to it. They loved it because they got to experience police and just do something with their family. Even if they didn't care about hanging out with the police, they got to do something with their family that was free, that was cost effective, and they got to have a good time. And they respected that. They're like, hey, the police is putting on something for my family to do for free. That's great. So there was 400 people that showed up to that event, and it was a huge success. We got a bunch of canned food donations for people, so we were able to give that to a bunch of other charities. But it was the first of many stones. I ended up doing a couple other big events that brought in thousands of people to do this kind of the same thing, whether it's trick or treating together with the police or another movie events. And the city just started to really kind of rally behind me. The not the police department, but the city, like your city council and everybody. They were like, okay, this is looking really good for TV, right? I started getting on the news. News started reaching out to me and say, hey, what are you doing? This is awesome. We want to highlight you. Different people from different parts of the state were reaching out, whether it's congressmen or senators, the governor, different things, people reaching out saying, hey, I like what you're doing. We're going to give you some sort of accolade for it, whether it's a certificate or just a rah, you're doing a good job kind of thing. I loved it. And I was going on different shows and really just kind of preaching what we wanted to do as police officers, just saying, hey, community out there's a lot of cops, not just me. There's a lot of officers out there that really do care. And we really want to see difference being made. Our personalities are different, but we're just like you. We're members of the community, and we want to be looked at like that as well.
Nice.
So me doing a lot of that kind of started again rubbing some people wrong from my agency because they're like, look at this guy, he's on TV, he's getting all this stuff.
Not to mention it's if the police department's putting it on, you're you're getting paid to go out and do what's fun for you.
Right.
Oh, that's gonna piss off a lot of cops.
It made a lot of people angry and a lot of people bitter. And then people the bigger the product started to become, the less light started being shined at the police department and more light started being shined at the product, which was okay to me because I wanted this to be something that every agency could use. I didn't want it to be like, oh man, only this city can use this. Yeah, so we don't need to help that out. Or man, I live in McKinney or I live in Frisco. I wish I could do some of that, but it's only there. I didn't want any of that. So that kind of pushed a lot of people the wrong way. They were like, oh, Justin's out here just becoming a millionaire off this. Like, what are you talking about? Like
I'm still in debt.
Yeah, I'm in the red right now, man. Like nobody's helping me. Nobody's helping me. When I'd visit schools, I'd print out my own coloring sheets, coloring books, and that stuff's expensive. Little sticker badges, patches, whatever, to give to these kiddos so they can take home something. And I was paying for that out of my pocket. PD wasn't helping me. They weren't doing anything. They were reaping a lot of the benefits from it because any news article that they put in a newspaper or TV show, they're like, this is brought to you by so-and-so police department. Like, no, it's not. It's really me and my wife that's funding all this.
Yep.
They're receiving a lot of grace from it, which is fine at the time because it built the city together and brought a lot of people together.
Well, it proved your point.
Yeah.
I mean, you started out with a mission and you knew exactly why you wanted to do it, but you have to prove it that it's working. And how do you do that? Well, you get an agency to be your pilot, and that was your pilot.
Yeah. So. and I enjoyed it. It was just one of those things that, when I created it, I thought it would go a lot different. I thought it would really not just so much bring the community together. Yeah, that's the big part, but it'd bring your agency together. And I thought that it might do a lot more of that, which it didn't. And that's the only thing that I really regret it being. But for the most part, Patrol Stories was designed to just really help kids interact with police and first responders in a different way, give them a new, safe learning experience that they haven't seen in a long time, and really just humanize the police officers. Let them know that, hey, this is a dad, this is an uncle, a mother, a niece,
Yeah.
somebody. We're just like you. And having fun in front of these kids really helps them open up their lives to us. And it really allows us to help mold them from young age to high school or growing into adulthood to respect police and to like them. And,
Yeah.
and we're not feared or we're not the enemy, but we're there for you. So we started doing a lot more of that, and it became really evident that what we were doing was working. More cities started calling, more schools from outside of my agency city calling me, say, hey, Justin, can you come here? Can you bring your program here? Can you do this? Can you do that? And at the time, he was a detective. So we didn't have a lot of time to be able to delegate to it. When we're on shift, we're still working for the city. So we have to do all the city stuff. So we would use our PTO time or all our vacation time to go outside a different agency to go help out these kids or go do stuff there.
Yeah.
Nobody really helped us out on that end as far as, hey, let's give them some leeway, a lot
Business days or something. Yeah.
something. Or, if you're still wearing our patch, you're still representing our
Mhm.
agency in a positive way. Go and do it. There's other nonprofits out there like Special Olympics or something that agencies might have a unit that specifically does that, but they'll go to different cities to do
Yeah.
meets or different things. And it's great. I think it's awesome because it's showing these officers really care and they're in different communities working together to make something great.
Yeah.
We didn't have that, but he was just like, hey, I'm going to help you out as much as I could. And we'd already become, pretty much best friends on the shift. So it's just like, okay, I can trust you. You know what I'm trying to do. You know what I'm trying to build. You're not going to do anything wrong by it. And then from there, it blossomed. It grew into something that it is today. So first, preschools, a couple, maybe 100 kids engaging with police officers, teaching them 911 safety. Then I got my 501c3 and was like, hey, I want to make this on a bigger scale. It became an elementary school program. So now we teach pre-K through 6th grade. Last May, we got certified through the state, where we got an accolade sent to the Capitol where they put us in the 87th legislation, said these guys are doing this. We want this to go to Texas. We want this to be Texas. How can we make this go everywhere? Like, well, okay, I can't work in my department anymore and still do this because there's just not enough time.
Yeah.
So that's when I kind of decided to make the move and say, hey, God's put me in a place of position to really help people, and I'm good at this. Let's, walk in faith. I started the program, said, hey, let's go. I ended up leaving my agency, was able to retire and keep my license through TCOL. So they keep me certified. And now I work with agencies all across the state to bring this program to their kids and their schools, utilizing them, asking them to come be along with it. Texas DPS is huge supporters of us. We work with state troopers that will go and visit schools with us. Most agencies will send their guys and gals out there to really engage and have fun too. And we put on just this ultimate show. If people don't know who we are, just look up Patrol Stories. Like, it's everywhere. And it's more than just a police officer coming to talk to your kids.
Yeah.
We make it a show, like a concert. It's, it's a $35,000-$40,000 production that we put in front of your kids every day.
No shit.
Yeah, smoke machines, confetti cannons, TV screens that talk back and
Lights.
forth, lights, animation. It's a huge deal.
Yeah.
So when kids see it, they're just like, oh my God, this is great.
Yeah.
Like, why did I not know about this? We're giving them T-shirts, badges, different things at the end of the shows, little gift bags. It's just something that they will always remember positive from the policing standpoint of things. But yeah, so we started doing it. I ended up leaving the agency to work full-time on Patrol Stories, which is what we do now. We see about 60 to 70,000 kids a year, each year, which is, very, very cool. We get to travel everywhere. We opened up hubs in San Antonio, Houston, Austin, Waco, of course, Dallas, Fort Worth area. This is home, but we're just trying to really spread this mission out, let kids see police officers in different lights. And ever since he's come along for full time, which was last November, it's really just kind of gravitated and done some big things.
Yeah, I hadn't heard of you guys, and then buddy reached out and was like, "Hey, I ran into these guys. You should reach out to them, have them on." And I was like, "No problem." And then started looking into it. I'm like, Jesus Christ, this is way bigger than I
Yeah.
bigger than I knew.
That's the
But-
general reaction.
But I
yeah.
was like, how have I not heard of it? Like, it just, things slip through the cracks. You just don't see everything. When I started doing this, the first thing I was worried about was stepping on toes. Like, I started looking like, is anybody else doing this? And I looked up a ton of stuff, and I saw other cops doing podcasts, but they didn't have the same vision that I was doing. So I was like, well, maybe I'm unique. Because I am touching on what a lot of cops like to focus on mental health. Others ones want to focus on stories, but not kid friendly stories.
Yeah.
So we kind of touch on it. I do touch on all of those things, but nobody is doing it in an aspect of educating and trying to bridge that gap with the community. They're just trying to say, we're cops. This is what we do. Like, okay, that helps. That is a positive thing. Don't get me wrong. I'm not knocking them, but kind of like how you were saying, you had McGruff, the crime dog, and Paw Patrol's out there.
Yeah.
So you got things like that, but yours is unique in that factor, especially if you're doing damn shows out there.
Yeah.
Now, how I understand that you guys worked together. So he basically was like, I'm guessing you started getting so busy, you were like, I need to start bringing people in.
Yeah, it was, and like I said, there wasn't a lot of support from our agency to begin with. So Mike was pretty much not the only, but one of the only ones to really say, hey, man, I'm going to help you out with his ministry background. That was really easy for him to get invested and get involved. Now, he had a learning curve, too, because he had that police mentality. This is stupid. We don't want to look like that. This makes policing look weak, whatever. And eventually he just had to evolve into it. And I said, hey, man, when we go visit these kids, imagine them as your kids. Your dad, be dad to them. You don't have to be Officer Carter, be Mike, and that helps them feel more comfortable around you and allows them to open up too. Also, there's a lot of kids that we see that may not have a father figure in their life. They may not have, any type of male role model. Well, we have an opportunity to do that. At least for that 30 minutes, that hour that we're there, we have an opportunity to really engage and help them. And so we want to do that. We want to make it the best experience of their lives. So whenever he started to really kind of buy into it, he saw what I was doing. He saw how animated I would be. He blossomed into his own thing and ended up being this character that I built that really shapes him and makes him let loose and have a really good time with it. So he just started doing more and more shows with me. We got to the point, like you said, we were very, very busy. We couldn't do both at the same time. So he was using up all his time, trying to use vacation time, using what he could to be able to help out. And then we're like, you know what? It's time, jump and come on over. We're going to do some crazy things and it's going to be great. You just have to believe a little bit in it. And he believed in it the entire time. So yeah, you can tell him why you did it.
First off, I apologize since you're like a preacher that I've been swearing. So
no, we're cops, right?
Yeah. I know, right?
It was one of those things of, with El Paso, there was a tight brotherhood with everyone. Like, even if I didn't know you and you would be on the other side of the city, we would still come up and greet each other, the way we did. We had that little quick handshake thing.
Yeah.
And that brotherhood of always being there was there. I can call upon you, hey, dude, can you help me out for like a couple hours? And I don't really know you. And chances are that officer would come up and help you. Where we were at when I lateraled, which, again, I don't regret my lateral decision to come to the DFW area. I really don't. I wouldn't have met him. My family wouldn't have grown. So when I came over here, though, that lack of brotherhood wasn't really there. I don't know if it's just because the DFW is so big and everyone is like so spread out. There's no barbecues, there's no get-togethers or anything like that. So he didn't really have a lot of support. And we already gelled on patrol together. Watching him grow through patrol work was always entertaining, whether it was him chasing the fast guy and I'd be like, well, let's just get that slow guy first and then we'll go. Yeah. So there was plenty of times where then like I just see him running, I'm like, all right, so I have to go run after him now. And
yeah.
But we gelled on patrol. But when he did this, again, coming from youth ministry, I was always, I did the skits or I would do some type of preaching work. But when I became a cop, that side of me just like diminished a lot. You became an officer, you had a role, you have a responsibility, a serious responsibility. And when he got this idea, this lighthearted idea that's going out to impact not just one person like you do as a police officer, where it's call to call, but you have an idea to impact multiple people, thousands of people, he didn't get that support. And I was like, okay, at least I can give him that brotherhood of support. I'll be there for you. I'll be the guy in the background. I'll help you set up and everything like that. And then eventually, therapeutic wise, the old me started coming back.
Yeah.
Being in front of the kids, high-fiving the kids, teachers that, have a great impact on kids, now seeing officers in a different light. That was huge. And that old me started coming back and back and back to where now I have this character who is probably the comedian of what we have right now. It's just, and these kids just laughing, loving to see this character. And wow, it's a special feeling now. To me, this is my youth ministry now, shedding light on policing to be, better, to be there for you. Yes, we deal with consequence. Yeah, no one likes to be punished. But hey, this is also a calling. It's also a job too, where we have families. We're going to be here for you. We can still have fun and, just go on with it. But now, there's within that agency that we were, there was no support. There was some support, but to the totality of everything, it wasn't.
Yeah.
So
was it the support had to benefit them equally, if not more?
Sometimes, yes. And that was, and again, okay, I get it. Let us do that for you. Let us go out and, hey, make policing look good. We're not trying to step on any toes or anything like that. We're there as a tool.
Yeah.
And, some people were like, okay, that's great. But for everyone, they didn't agree with it because they were a little bit more stoic, a little bit more older. They didn't want that personality to shine through.
And it's still such a new concept.
It is.
You know what I mean? It's now when you guys are doing this, when you guys are going through all this stuff, a half hour, 45-minute show is what you're saying?
So it ends up being about a 4-hour production as far as when we're loading in and going out. But when we're actually teaching the kids, we separated it into 2 groups, pre-K through 2nd and 3rd through 6th. And so they're about 30, 35 minutes, the actual performance each.
Okay.
But when you're loading in all that stuff and packing it up and taking it out and then going to the next school, it ends up being like a 3 to 4 hour day at each school. But yeah, I mean, just like he said, there was a lot of, actually you said it, there was a lot of people saying, hey, what is this going to do for me? Instead of how great is this that the community is loving this and we look great.
Yeah.
And people were starting to say, how are we going to get money for this? How do we, piggyback off of what they're doing or whatever? Oh, we're not in the newspaper. They don't say my name. Like it started to be
there's a jealousy there.
There was a jealousy that really kind of picked up. And the more that happened, the more it pushed me and the program away from that agency. I wanted to separate it completely so I could be like, you know what? You guys quit hating on me. Let me do my thing. Don't worry about me. Just let me do what I do.
But this was also a program that was designed for every agency too.
Yeah.
We didn't want it just to be tied down to one. This is for everyone. There's police officers all across the world. This is a program for every officer, every agency.
And that was the craziest thing about it is every other city we'd go to, that agency loved it. They had welcoming, open arms. We love what you're doing. Thank you. And we made it a point to invite them, have them be a part of every presentation, be a part of it. Even if everything's real scripted with our show, but even if you don't want to be in front of the camera or in front of the kids, be on the side when they're coming in, high five them, let them know that you're there, meet them, say hi. This is where your chance to be personable with these kiddos. And they do it. So we'll have big cities, small cities, DPS, everybody will get invested and involved in it and just have their troopers or their officers come. And those kids love it. They love being able to see them. And then the show that we put on, it allows them to not only respect us, but, not fear us. And we're more relatable to those kids to where they can say, man, I love Justin. I love Mike. I love Maxwell. They're friends with those officers. I like them too. We're hanging out with them. Let me just go meet their friends. And it just really kind of brings people together. So it started doing that, and every city just loved it. City members, city council members, mayors, people are like, dude, how do we do more of this in our city? Okay, well, I need some help because right now I'm funding all this by myself. How do we do this without charging an arm and a leg to schools or PTAs or PTOs or whatever, and we just make it financially feasible for us to do this. So we started applying for business grants or business opportunities as a 501c3. You know, people can donate to us, and it's a tax write off for them.
Yeah.
But when we have a show as big as what we put on with all that production, it's also a marketing tool for your business. So businesses started to see that, and we'd have, you know, Shields or large companies come up to us and say, hey, you know, we not only do we love what you do and we want to be invested in our own communities, but we're able to put our signage and stuff on your stuff, and when the news sees it or all the videos that y'all put out, it shows the community that our business cares. And so more and more businesses started to come forward, more and more donors, independent donors come forward. We have a blessing of a lady who really truly helped us from the ground going, and a lot of it was she has a biracial family, and some of her family members were terrified. Little kids were terrified of police, and she didn't want that. She's like, how do I make them not afraid of you? She saw the program, was like, oh my God, there's a calling for this. I'm going to help you. How do I help you? And she's just been heavenly since then, really just backing us and putting us in position to meet people and do things. But the program has just grown so fast, and to where people are wanting a piece of it now.
Yeah.
People want to see how can they involve themselves in it, which is great for us because it allows us to do more and interact with more people. But it also kind of builds up our own walls because we have so much stuff that's happening at one time, and really 2 to 3 people helping us put it all together. So until this thing grows out to I can hire more people to come and do it different places in different cities, we have to limit ourselves to how many schools we can go to. We have to really kind of strategize logistically where we're going to be, what part of the state we'll be in. We have now Georgia, Arkansas, Louisiana, Oklahoma calling us now. I'm like, oh God, how do we get out there now? Because we want this to be given to everybody. I want police departments everywhere to be able to utilize this as a tool, and be a part of the progress.
Yeah.
Like that's really it. Be a part of the progress, not part of the problem.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of officers out there that do want to do that. There's a lot of those that don't really care to. That's fine too. But you know,
Yeah.
it's
Well,
just
you
one
want
of
the
those things.
people that have a calling for it. It's I've learned, like, even with this, growing organically versus trying to grow too quickly, too fast. That's the trick. And then funding is always an issue. I am not a 501(c)(1) because I couldn't figure out how to do the paperwork myself. So I wanted protection quick, fast, and in a hurry. So I just became an LLC. And then I'm not a business guy. I don't know how to do business. So I reached out to people, and they're like, well, do sponsorship, like, or sell things. Those are the two things. I am not good at selling things. I hate it. And as a matter of fact, I only do like the coin thing that I was telling you about, or sometimes I'll do stickers. That's about as far as I'll go because I don't like doing it. Let's put it that way. I don't like doing it. So for you guys, if you're growing that big, it's a networking thing. And shit, I don't know how. Texas alone is enormous. I think they said if you're like at the west side of Texas, you're closer to California than you are to the east side of Texas. So that's insane. For you guys growing that way, what is the next step? Because if you're growing that exponentially quickly, like, you're gonna have to start hiring some more people. I mean, you're
Right.
state to state now.
So the biggest thing that we could do as an organization was provide different platforms for people to be able to watch us. Like this podcast, people can see it on YouTube or they can see it on your social media sites, and social media has been huge.
Yeah.
So how can I also put together what we do live as far as like an online version of it too? So we can reach different places before we actually get to those places.
Okay.
So El Paso, Lubbock, all those places have been reaching out to us. It's far for us to go there for, a few days, but I can also give you small samples of what it is that we do so your teachers can share it with their kids. Then by the time we get there, whether that's Georgia, Arkansas, anywhere else too, same thing. By the time we get there, they kind of become familiar with us. Plus, I wanted to grow the brand because what I did was a little different. I have a 501c3 that runs our nonprofit organization that allows us to do the teaching material at schools. But I also have an LLC that owns all my IP. So we own all the trademarks. We own everything, my wife and I, from developing all this. So we have a children's book series. We have an animated series that's being created that's going to be on TV. We have clothing. We have patches. We're hitting every different market. So kids that will be able to engage with us or see us, they become familiar with those characters. They love them. They care about
Yeah.
them, and then they become invested into it. To where when we're visiting 1,000 kids at one school or 3,000 a week, maybe we'll get to the point to where we're doing multiple schools at one time in these
Right.
large venues, taking that $30,000 production, making it $150,000 production, and just raising money,
Yeah.
raising awareness to what it is.
Even at the small level, like the way my brain's going right now, and totally use this idea. I'm giving you permission on the show. So, if you can't do your major production, just on to get you guys out there, if you're doing an animated series, SROs, school resource officers around the nation, you could just be like, hey, we want to get your stuff. Like, all right, cool. Here's our animated. Put it on your big screen, do a projector, have your officers talk about this. They can become like a trainer, so to speak, learn your guys' program. You guys certify them. Yep, you're good to go. Go ahead and show this. And that could be a much cheaper, easier version to get you out there until you can expand this.
And that was actually one of my first ideas. So when I built it all, I thought about that. Like, how can I get other officers to be able to present the same things we do? As an officer, a lot of the training we do is online, that. So
Yeah.
it's just watching videos teaching us how to do what we do. Okay, well, I can also send a training video or just give officers the turnkey option. You may not be the lively person, and that's fine. You can push play and you can put it on a TV or a SanDisk or something and be able to say, hey, kids, watch this. We're going to learn about bicycle safety. We're going to learn about trusted adults or mental health or gun awareness. We're going to learn about these little topics today.
Yeah.
You push play, it's 2 to 3 minute video of me and this guy acting a fool and just being funny. Then you have a Q&A afterwards. So does anybody have any questions about it? And at the very beginning, the whole Maxwell idea, the suit, was possibly going to be intended to where agencies could purchase it just like they could a McGruff.
Right.
So they could have their own. So at the end of the day, you have the officer push play. You have another officer that just throws on a suit, waves at the end and says hi and takes some pictures and you're done.
Yeah.
Does your own community events, your own, 4th of July's and all that good stuff. You wear your own suits and have fun with it. But then it became more of a licensing thing. The bigger we got, the more liability came into what, was being presented by the brand. And with different opportunities from TV or animation or, clothing or licensing opportunities as far as our branding, it started to limit the aspects of us being able to deliver this to an agency, because who knows what might happen down the road. Somebody might say, hey, I want to buy this from Nickelodeon. I'm from Nickelodeon. I want to buy this and we want to make it the Ninja Turtles or we want to make it Paw Patrol.
Right.
And you have all these agencies that have different suits or different things to hand out stickers, and it makes the liability of it that much more difficult to kind of work through. So we're still working through all that. I have, when you do something like this, you have to be smart. You have attorneys that draw up all this stuff. You have people that write all these things out for you. They handle the licenses. They handle the real big conversations. I'm just there to kind of say, hey, man, this works. Check it out. We kind of did things backwards. We see 70,000 kids a year. A lot of people don't ever have that opportunity. We have something that's presented to them. And in schools, they have to come. It's one of those things, like they don't have a choice to stay back in the classroom, and they want to be a part of something fun. So those kids really just love it. And at the end of it, whether they cared about police beforehand or afterwards, they're like, oh, man, I have something that I'm really, really passionate about. I love this. I love you guys. I want to be a police officer when I grow up.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what makes it all kind of come back full circle. But Patrol Stories is just growing so big, and we appreciate all the support that we do get, whether that's from a business or an individual or the agencies. I love so much working for the agencies and seeing how much it's really helping them and how much it helps us to be invested into their community as well. It's so great to see that, because when you get so much pushback from your own agency, you're like, man, does this even exist anymore? Do these cops really care? Is there anybody out there that's going to like this as much as I do?
Yeah.
And you start to realize there is. And that really kind of motivates you to do more and really bounce off new ideas and try different things. So the next steps are, our book series is going to grow. Our clothing line is going to grow. Our shows are going to expand to be bigger and bigger. And then the animated series, different videos for cops everywhere to be able to share with their people, or teachers, counselors, principals. They can all share it. It's all on the YouTube channel.
I need to get a hold of your animated guy. I've always.
It's cool.
I don't know if you watch Rogan ever, but there's some guy, some fan, that will take a clip from his show, whether it's an entertaining story or whatever, and he'll animate it, and it's hilarious. And I'm like, that's such a brilliant idea. And I was like, I don't know how to do any of that.
It's so hard, and it's so hard. Those people are very talented.
I know,
very talented, very time consuming, and it can get very expensive. When we started doing it, it was very, very simple. I need 2 minutes. Give me 2 minutes of something, and then I use it all the time until it grows into something else or it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. You start getting more of a following. We use a lot of green screen now. We have an office in Plano. We have a mobile unit, so a big van that carries all of our stuff to different places when we go.
Yeah.
We stay at hotels. We have deals with hotels. Different people will help fund us to go to different places, whether that's HEB or somebody that really wants us in that community. So it really helps us. But our program has grown so big. The office, it's outgrowing our office now. We have so much stuff stacked up in our warehouse and then our actual offices that it makes things very difficult to continue to do everything we do as far as booking, finance, scheduling where we're going to be, doing like the hotels, the flights or gas or rental cars, booking the actual shows, dealing with all the social media stuff. And just from editing one video, how time consuming that can be.
Yeah.
So we do everything.
Yeah.
We do work with different people as far as animation guys that are contractors. They'll help us out. Different people that will put together our videos, photographers. A lot of these people just volunteer and they're community people. And they're like, hey, I want to volunteer my time. Maybe my kid goes to your school. Oh. I love that. Can you bring it here? Can you help us? Yeah. What can you do to help me? This is just, we'll take some photos. We'll donate the photos to you. Perfect. That's all I need. Let's figure this out. But I mean, dude, in a year, it's blossomed into, like I said, 90 kids per show to 70,000 kids per year.
Yeah.
And it's just continuing to grow,
very
bigger.
Fast.
Are you guys, something I would be curious of seeing? I would like to see the success stories. Like you guys going out, you finding a kid or two that that the teachers even tell you, like, this is going to be the one that you have to win over. He's had some either bad interactions or bad, I don't want to say bad parenting, but parenting that has affected his vision of what police are, or sometimes even it's just the school culture, the way the kids are. Right. I see it on social media. It's cool to not like the cops, stuff like that. And so I would be interested in seeing the transformation.
And a lot of that's live. Like, honestly, you get to see what you're doing and the impact that you're making each time you're there.
Yeah.
And we do have those. So we have a lot of counselors that will come up to us. And we had one the other day that just said, hey, we do a small gun prevention topic. We call it Don't Risk, Don't Touch, DRDT. It's just something to help kids remind, hey, if you find a gun on a park or at a playground or friend's house, this is what you do. You leave it alone, you find some help, right? Because it can be very dangerous. They may look like a toy, but it's not a toy.
Not a week later.
So, and about a week after we left that school, we had a counselor call us like, Justin, they did it. What do you mean? Well, they found a gun at our school playground. The first thing they did was run back to their SRO and say, hey, I found this. Nobody touched it. They left it alone. They said, DRDT, leave it alone. Run, tell your SRO, and he handled the situation. It ended up being like an airsoft gun, but you didn't know. They didn't know that.
Right.
And they did the right thing. So we hear those type of things, or you'll see the kiddos or counselors say exactly what you said. Hey, you never know what you're going to get. Different communities are different. But you might have a little boy or girl that mom or dad may have just got arrested last night from the police.
Right.
So they don't trust you. They fear for everything about you. At the beginning of the show, they're, kind of laughing at us, whatever else. And at the end of the show, they're like, I want to be a police officer. They come up in tears, hugging you. This was the greatest day of my life. Can you come back next year? How can I see you again? Whatever. Like, it really, you're creating a bond in real time with these kids. And it allows us to not only come back and recreate that, but those officers that we left behind from that city, now it's your turn.
Yeah.
I open the door, engage with these kids, come back and see them every now and then, say hi, high five them, whatever. And it's worked. All these agencies are doing that.
Those would be cool things to animate too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That my brain, like, this is how I work. I can't. I'm a think tank type guy. I just think of cool shit. No, that's awesome. When you guys go to these schools and you're talking to the kids, are you guys engaging with the parents at all? Do the parents ever show up? Do they know? Has there been any backlash from parents?
Yes. Not a lot, but there has been the occasional. A lot of the thing that we do is put on by the PTA or PTO.
Okay.
So it eliminates the school having to pay directly for anything. It's either a business sponsoring a specific school, an individual, or a PTA or PTO coming together and say, hey, we need a program coming in. Your program is educational and entertaining. Cool, let's do it. So they'll pay for us to come or donate to us so we can keep the program going and we'll go visit that school. But parents usually aren't at the school unless they're a part of the PTA. That's something that I do want to change because I saw how great it was putting together a community event where families were allowed to be a part of it. And I just know that's going to make this thing even bigger. So going from a school atmosphere to maybe an auditorium or a small arena and making a huge thing where you can invite your family, your grandmother, your grandfather, your parents, they can be a part of the experience as well and enjoy it with their kids and see how much their kids enjoy it.
Yeah.
Then it allows them to kind of mold their mind as well. When I was doing live events, or not live events, community events, we would have family members, parents that did not trust police. They hated us. But when we would show up in a costume just to play hoops or throw a ball around or donate a bike to some kids, they were like, you know what? I don't like the cops, but that's pretty cool, man. What
Yeah.
y'all are doing, that's pretty cool. Or we'd have a parent saying, hey, can you give some time to my kids over here? And yeah, absolutely, let's go hang out. Come with me.
Yeah.
Let's go have some fun with them. And it really just opened people's eyes to it. So throughout the past few years, cops have gotten a lot of backlash from different things that have gone on, and some is rightfully so, some is, it's up in the air. But what we want to do is just reassure communities that there's a lot of good cops out there. There's a lot of great cops that really care, that want to do the right thing.
Yeah.
And they're out there trying. You just don't see a lot of that. You don't see the things that
Yeah.
they do that really do make an impact. So what we get to do is highlight some of those things. It really shines a positive light on them and their officers, and that community brings them together and allows us to keep moving forward. But parents are like, okay, they might say, hey, mental health, I don't want my kid learning about mental health this elementary school, or gun safety. You don't need to say, listen, this is real life. We don't live in a fairy tale land. Like your kids are going through something at some point in their life. And little kids, they deal with issues too, just as same as, high school kids or adults.
Yep.
And at that age, they don't know who to talk to, and they just think, man, maybe something's wrong with me because I feel this way, and my friend Bob over here feels great. Why am I not like him? And it really just kind of isolates them, and that's where the whole isolation thing starts. They want to keep themselves to themselves. Well, with this, we're able to communicate with them in a fun way. It's not a don't do this or hey, it's not. We try to keep it light.
Yeah.
Let them know that there are some serious things that happen from these things, but for the most part, give them a fun way of experiencing it. So at the end of the day, those parents that were a little hesitant, they're like, that was great.
Yeah.
You hit the nail on the coffin. Like, that was actually good. I'm not worried about what it is you said at the beginning. You said you're going to talk about gun safety, and I was worried about it, or mental health. I was worried about it, but that was actually the best part of the show.
Yeah.
So you change them.
Yeah, I would like
real
to
time.
see. So one of the like my school is very engaging with parents. My kids' schools, they have donuts with dad. Daddy daughter dance, stuff like that. Field day, all the parents are invited. When I hear your program, I've seen programs that have been put on by other things at schools, and it's parents are never invited. They may have like an open door policy at their school for something like that, but they're not sending out notifications. It would be cool for y'all's program, even though I've never seen it. Assuming it's everything you say and more, it would be cool for me as a parent. This is kind of my angle. I'm like, I'd like an invitation to that, because that is a good time for me, one, to just reinforce the message as a parent. Like, I'm a cop, so it's kind of unfair, but my kids know that cops are generally there to help you. And I've even taught my kids how to deal with a cop that they think's being a prick.
Yeah.
I'm like, there's going to be times you got to understand, one, you have to understand that cop's perspective. He doesn't know you. He doesn't know anything about you. He's only got limited information to go off of. And he may have just came from a dead baby call. You don't know. I was like, so there has to be a little grace when it comes to this stuff. So when it comes to y'all's program, it would be really awesome for me if I got a notification, hey, patrol stories are coming out. We invite all of our parents. We're going to have donuts and whatever. I'm always a fan of donuts, so just have donuts. Yeah. And
aren't we all?
Yeah, have y'all come out and do that. But are you guys implementing that? Is that something you suggest?
Well, the problem with it, I think, is especially nowadays. There's so many security measures of getting into schools, which is rightful. Like that's needed. But when we host a presentation, there could be anywhere from 500 to 900 kids during one
Right.
presentation. So, and that usually fills up a school's gym or cafeteria. If they invited all the parents, just, that's double fold or triple fold of
Yeah.
all that in one place. That's the reason why we're trying to implement something bigger and put it into a place that where it's not going to be that specific at that school, but it might be held in a bigger place,
Right.
a bigger arena to where we can invite parents. Because I'm with you 100%. I want parents to be involved and be invested in the program as just much as the kids, because then, when your kids are younger, they're watching Blippi or some of these shows on YouTube, and you're just like, oh my God, not this again. You
Yeah.
have something that's,
Mr. Beast.
Yeah. Hey, Mr. Beast, holler at me, man. I
know.
need your help.
I love Mr. Beast.
But you see something different, and
Yeah.
you see something fresh, and whether it was Barney when we were in the 90s or whatever,
Mhm.
that was created this pretty much the same way Patrol Stories is. It's just something fresh, something new for kids to gravitate to and learn from.
Yeah.
We're doing something very similar to that. So it's just like, okay, as much help as we can get, as much people that we can get working together to push this out there, the bigger the events will be, the more we'll invite or be able to involve the parents. And that just makes it more well-rounded. It allows people to understand what it is that we're trying to do. Whether it's also inviting every law enforcement officer from that town there as well, having their cool cars and stuff outside. Because at this age, elementary school, we're still heroes to a lot of these kids, and it's superheroes. They love the flashing lights. They love all that cool stuff.
Yeah.
So being able to see that and help them identify, man, that's Officer Mike. Oh my gosh, and they're starting to do that with us now as far as, oh my God, I saw you have a poster of you on my wall, or, hey, I saw Maxwell, his cartoon. It was so awesome. I want to be Maxwell when I grow up. It really allows them to identify a little bit different with us and make it bigger. So I want to. It's just, you got to crawl before you walk. Kind of
Yeah, yeah, I get it. Well, you brought me some stuff here. I want to make sure I get it on the camera. So, one, you brought me a patch, which is awesome. So, I'm going to show that to the camera right now. It's pretty cool. I like it. This is Officer Maxwell. That's his name.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So we usually give those out to the agencies that will come support us or be
Okay.
with us. We like to, flop patches, just like everybody. We have our wall of patches. The book was a little bit different. It was actually a real life call that we went on and that we just had animated and put into a book form for kids. So it's an actual hardback. You can get it at our website, patrolstories.com. Buy it for your kids. It's a great story. It's fun. And then
cool.
everything else from the T-shirts that we have.
I'm not going to show the camera the inside. They got to get it if they want to see it.
But you can say how awesome it is. That's
I'm
some
peeking.
great work.
Yeah.
Like it's not
It was made by officers.
It was illustrated by an officer. It was, the story was told and written by me. The different shirts that we give out. Here's some for your kiddos too.
Oh, thank you, sir.
Little Hero, the Patrol Stories tour shirt. It's one of those things that, the more kids can hold something in their hand and see it, it allows them to really kind of invest into it. And kids these days, they're visual learners. Kids want to be entertained. They want to learn something from these people that go and share something with them. So they get to take home something from us. The parents get to see it and be like, oh my gosh, now I want a shirt too, or I want a book. And I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
whatever.
Well, now I see why it costs so much to do a show, because you're putting out T-shirts and books.
Yeah,
Patches.
it's a bunch. Sticker
Yeah.
badges. We do our bags. These are our bags, so we'll give them away.
Okay.
So we have drawstring
Same
bags.
as the cover is your book.
Same as the cover of the book.
I really like the animation. Like, I have a history of being very honest.
Mhm.
If I don't like something, I've had companies that have reached out and I've had on the show and stuff, and I'm like, I don't really see that working. And but they're like, that's not what you're supposed to say. I'm like, I don't care, dude.
Wow.
Like, I'm gonna
The
be honest with
truth,
you.
huh?
But no, I'm an anime fan. Dragon Ball Z is kind of how I got started, and then now I'm obviously a huge Star Wars nerd. So all of the animated Star Wars stuff, I respect the work that goes into the animation side, and I will say, looking through the book and seeing the front, like it's clean. It's
Yeah.
like clean, and it gives you that you can feel the positivity off of the animation part itself. So
Right.
that's cool. I like that. So good job. I like that. Whoever you got to do, you said it was an officer that
Yeah.
does the animation?
Yeah, he was an officer, same agency we worked at, and he actually does a lot of illustrations for different businesses or companies that want something just lively.
Yeah.
And it's just real cool. I'm all about having a good product. It's not so much about just putting something out there just to have it,
Right.
but I want it to be a
Yeah.
great
Quality.
product, quality over
Yeah.
quantity all day. So our
Yeah.
books are quality. I mean, you felt it's a hardback.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a nice put together book. Our shirts are top of the line. Everything that we do, we try to make it the best, including our show. So, when parents have an opportunity to, or they see us online and they're like, "Hey, I'd love this to help out at my school," man, we'd love to visit. You just
Right.
put in a request. We usually generate about 400 requests a year. So, and I can only do about 150 per year physically between us.
Okay.
So it's all about, how fast you put in that request, where we're going to be logistically. Will we be in that area during that time? When we travel to Austin, we'll usually be there a week or so at a time, visiting 10 schools back to backs every single day. Same thing here. Every single day is at a different place.
Yeah.
Different cities, it's different. But, the plan is to get this as spread out as much as possible, get kids re-engaging with police again, and really just having some fun with us. As cops, we need to learn to have a little bit more fun too.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if we can evolve, there's that.
Yeah.
That's the last piece, right?
That's why I like doing this. It's fun.
Yeah.
I'm a talker anyway. That's just how I am. And I will talk to anybody everywhere. And I'm also an instructor, like just at heart. I'm a teacher at heart. So I like to take, we'll be talking about a topic and so hold on, let the class understand, like, this is what things to consider. I'll let you make your own conclusions, but so I get what you mean. If you have that passion and it's fun, I mean, it's going to just keep going and growing.
Yeah.
And that's shit. I will do this for as long as the support is there. Cause you got to have support. So,
Yep.
So people can find you. Say I know you said it, but what is the website again?
So patrolstories.com is
Okay.
where you can go and actually see testimonials of our school visits. You can book us or get us prepared to come see one of your schools. You can also see us at Patrol Stories on YouTube. Just look us up, Patrol Stories.
Okay.
Social media, Instagram, all that, Twitter. It's all at Patrol Stories.
Okay.
You can find us.
Are you on TikTok?
We are on TikTok.
Hell
We
yeah.
got some really cool stuff on TikTok.
I just started.
We just started ours
Yeah.
not too long ago too. Same thing with Twitter. I've never been a big Twitter person. I don't know how to
Yeah.
tweet, but we have it out there because a lot of schools communicate through Twitter.
Yeah.
So we needed to put something out there. But social media, YouTube, follow us, like it.
Yeah.
Show it to your kiddos. It's some great educational, entertaining material.
Yeah.
You're not going to find anything vulgar or political or anything on there. We're there to have fun.
Yeah.
And we want kids to have fun with us. So, yeah, look us up. You can buy your book online. And probably the biggest thing is booking. It's so hard to book us nowadays.
Yeah.
Just get a request in there. even if it's not till next school year, we'll get around to it and we put it on a list. We have a waiting list of schools that are ready for us.
Okay.
And then as for you, come see us, man. Come.
Yeah.
If we're in the area at a local school, come be a part of it. Come witness it.
Yeah. For sure.
Like you said, you like to talk, man. I'm a huge talker.
Oh, he
People
talks a
like
lot,
him
yeah.
will just be like, they'll be like, dude, you need to shut up.
But
But it's
I have
like
to rein him in a
it's
lot.
like
He's an
when-
L one.
and like you did with this podcast, it's your baby.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
This is your product. So you're proud about
You
it. And you
take
should
pride.
be. So I'm a lot like that. And I tell people, I can tell you till I'm blue in the face what it is we do, but until you actually witness it, you won't be able to experience the experience that they actually get.
Yeah.
And so we've had, that's how we get businesses to come see us or want to sponsor schools or different areas or people. They'll look, oh my God, dude, I had no idea.
I'll
what
have to
you were
learn from
saying
you.
about.
And this is, you could attest to this, I'm sure, you both being cops. It is against our nature. We are morally and ethically the opposite of the people that ask for help or money. It is so hard for me.
Yes.
And 2 years into this, I finally, just on LinkedIn, because I'm still very uneasy about it, put out a flyer stating that we were open for more sponsorships. Because to me, that's like, you're begging.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very hard for me to do that. Did you go through those same struggles?
Especially when we were still at the department, because you can't, you
Right.
know, you can't do that. It's ethically wrong.
Right.
So, and we wanted to do everything by the book, is what we did. So anything that we did business wise was off duty. We'd go and say, hey, I'm gonna fund this myself. Would
Mhm.
your kids like some little take home bags? I'm gonna pay for it. Just
Yeah.
at least help me break even so I don't lose money on it. Okay, cool. We weren't looking to try to make a lot of money. But yeah, it was very difficult for us to get into a business and say, hey, I need X amount of dollars to do this. Or whatever, because you do, as a cop, you don't want to ask for help.
Yeah.
You don't want to, financially especially,
Mm-hmm.
you want to do it all on your own.
It's
but
awkward.
but
It is.
you get better at it when you have to.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we've like I said before, we've been presented with so much grace. So many great people around us have just said, hey, I want to help, and we've gotten to the point to where people reach out to us now. Hey, I
Yeah.
want to help. I want to be a
Yeah.
part of this. I want to do this. So we don't have to do it so much. It's just finding the right partnerships, the right
Right.
people to
I've had to
kinda come
turn
together
away a
with.
couple sponsors. Actually, that's the problem I have now is the people that do want to sponsor the show are people that like realtors. And no offense, realtors, but you have nothing to do with the show. Like
Right.
it needs to morally and ethically align with what I'm doing. Now, if you're a tactical police gear place, that fits.
Right.
That's my audience, you know? If you are, something that fit, if PTSD, mental health, we can go down the line of all these different things that kind of fit. I'm a military member still. I do reserves, but anything military related, all that stuff. If you are like Project Innocence, I wish they would reach out to me. I want to get somebody from Project Innocence here. That's on the other side, and that fits along the line. So those are the types of things, just like you're saying, you're not going to go let Pornhub represent you. So it doesn't fit. So that's what I try to tell people. I'm like, it's not that I have zero people like trying to be a part of it. It's just, you need to fit. And then have you had this issue with any sponsorship? I've had sponsors try to dictate how that their sponsorship was going to fit. I'm
Oh
like,
yeah.
no, this is you. Yes,
Mhm.
if I like your stuff, awesome, but it's going to be my style. It ain't going to be your style. You're not going to tell me when your sponsorship's going to, ads going to play and all that stuff. I try to hit it for my podcast every 20 or 30 minute mark. I just try not to interrupt you. Like
Right.
if you talk through the 20-minute mark, I'm going to wait until I'm about to talk and then we'll play the sponsor for your stuff. So it just has to flow, has to make sense.
On the nonprofit end, it makes things a lot more difficult because they do a lot of that. People want to know where exactly their money is being used in your organization
Yes.
and who it's helping. Whether it's the demographic of students, the areas of the towns. I only want it at inner city Fort Worth or Dallas or whatever,
Really?
or I only want it here or here. Yeah, I mean, and I get it too. Like a lot of places, they specify where they want their sponsorship to go to, and I get it. That's fine. But as for you at the LLC, this is your business. You can run it however you'd like to.
Yeah.
As far as I can use you or I won't use you. Nonprofits are a little bit different, and as far as we do have to take in consideration where they want to use it or how we can incorporate them as much as we can.
Yeah.
But they have to also understand that they're donating. They're not
Yeah.
paying for a service. You're donating to a cause.
Right.
When you start to make a lot of demands based on what it is you want to get in return, it stops becoming a donation and starts becoming a paying for a service.
Yeah.
And
And
it
they
becomes
got to
different.
understand this is your vision. Your vision has led you to this point.
Mhm.
That is what got you there. And if they can't keep track of that, or if you lose sight of it yourself, then the mission, the vision is going to start to astray and it may not be as successful down the line. You may not get what you want. And that's what I try to, shout out to Joe Rogan. He's the reason he's like, I mean, he literally gave me this mindset of like, no, that's not what I'm into. This is what I see. The reason I've gotten to this point is because of how I think and how I do and the way I do things. Now, it's not that I'm not open for suggestions. I
Right.
will listen to what you're saying. If I think it fits me, yeah, sure. But you do have to stay true to yourself.
Mhm.
And
Absolutely. And a lot of our sponsorship is also organic. That's why I wear a Black Rifle
Yeah.
shirt around. Just about anywhere we go, we have Black Rifle gear because I not only do I love the product, but it's something they love police and first responders. They
Yeah.
want to help out. So
Yeah.
you start finding different organizations or companies like that really do believe in what it is you do. And the more that you're already representing them, they're like, hey, let me throw them a bone. Let's figure out how we
Yeah.
can partner together. They're in front of 70,000 kids. Okay,
Right.
let's figure out something.
Yeah.
And
Let's
it
get
just
them
makes things-
caffeinated.
Yeah, yeah. Let's at least make sure they're awake in front of those kids.
Right.
Get some
But,
energy in there.
Yeah.
and
Did you hear that they fed 70,000 kids a bunch of coffee? It was
Yeah.
crazy.
Wait a second.
but we enjoy it, man. It's a lot of fun, and like where you're coming from, I totally see it. And there's so much growth. You've already told us kind of how much growth since when you started to where you are now.
Yeah.
And that 2-year mark is coming up, so that's super cool.
Yeah.
With us, since 2021 is when I got my 501c3 license approved. So now we're getting close to that 2-year mark at the end of the year to where it'll be, when we
Okay.
actually started. And it's like, okay, we saw where we began.
Yep.
Now we have a vision of where we're going. Growth is coming. We're gonna hire on new people. We're always looking for marketing people, people that have business backgrounds and can really sell, and really just put the product in different people's hands. How do we have that? Because we're stretched pretty thin where we are now.
Well, let me ask your permission now. I have on the web page for the podcast, I have a sponsors and charities, basically nonprofits page. So I got like Tunnels to Towers, Cops for Kids, just a bunch of stuff like that. I'd like to put y'all's stuff on
Yeah.
there, free. No, I don't charge anything. Anybody that wants to see the type of stuff that I support personally, they can jump on there and decide if they want to donate to Tunnels for Towers and all that stuff. So
That'd be
I'd
great.
love to put y'all on there.
It's a community working together, man. We enjoy it. We love supporting those, even if they don't support us. We love supporting good product and good businesses and people that just really make a positive difference. That's what it's all about.
Yeah.
Especially if you have kids. Everybody wants their kids safe in school. Everybody wants their kids growing up in a better society and in a better world, and not going backwards. So as long as we're surrounding ourselves with those type of people, I think we're going to be just fine.
Hell yeah. Well, the only other thing I wanted to ask you, this is when you first started telling me this, I was going to ask and I forgot to. Your wife, she's a saint.
She is.
She supported you.
She is.
This is a big vision that she wasn't a cop. I'm taking it.
No.
So for her to hear this and to support an idea of something that she has zero experience with other than hearing from you, because I went through the same thing.
That support system is huge.
It
And no
is.
matter what you do in life, having a great support system behind you can really catapult you into a higher trajectory of where you can be. And
Yeah.
my wife did that. So all this really came to me in a dream as far as how big it could be
Yeah.
or what I needed to do. And so it's hard to wake up one morning and be like, hey, honey, I'm going to have to empty out our savings. I know we were trying to go Hawaii after our wedding. Not going to be able to do that anymore. I need to do this.
Yeah.
And for the most part, she's like, let's go. I'm game.
No way.
Whatever
Yeah.
you need, I got you. And so she will actually join us on a bunch of shows as far as photography or video stuff. She helps us with the admin stuff, reaching out to
Okay.
the schools. So she's a huge part of what we do. But both of our families, they make sacrifices as far as watching the kids on days that we have to go out of town, or moms or wives working over duty, having to do a lot of stuff while we're gone. It's very stressful. But like in police work or as a firefighter, you understand that what kind of as a spouse,
Yeah.
what you're getting into. But
The foundation's there.
yeah,
The
So
foundation's there, and that's what makes us able to grow faster too.
I was going to ask you both when you were deciding to quit your department, what was that conversation like with your spouse?
it was easy for me.
Yes.
It was easy.
Yeah.
We had gotten to the point where seriously the turmoil that had been happening as far as what we had created has had so much buzz and so much popularity. We were the most unpopular people at our police department. Believe it or not, people were trying to throw dirt on our program, trying to shut it down, to the point to where even the chief was the same way. He no longer was that supportive guy, and he was like, this has to stop. You guys are doing all this stuff, and it was starting to become more about him than it was what the product was trying to do.
I was going to say, what would the argument be? How dare you help kids?
Exactly, right? You would think so. You're like, oh man, you're making police look good. Like,
Yeah.
no. And
Where's the negative? Other
that's-
than what, like, let's say you're not, I need more bodies in patrol. I can see that,
right?
but
It's mostly just personal. Like, what do I, and like you said at the beginning, what do I get from this?
yeah,
And it stopped becoming about what the product was doing for the community and started to become personal to
Mhm.
people, and people were taking it personal. And where it was never supposed to be that way, it was never intended to be that way. Me and my wife spent a lot of money doing this and building it. For you to then throw shade on me doesn't really make it a fair situation. So by the time I was ready to go, man, there was so much darkness coming around us
Yeah.
that made it very, very easy for me to say, you know what, I'm done.
Yeah.
I love police work. I love it. Like I was telling you before, I love working in the street crimes unit. I loved working patrol. I loved doing the community stuff. I felt I found my place.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know what, this is great. But when you don't have that support from your own people, from your own
Yeah.
troops, it makes what you're doing that much harder to do.
Mhm.
And at that point, I was just like, you know what?
Yeah.
I remember him
I'm-
being on the
I'm
phone
done.
with me right before all this stuff happened, before he left, and I was actually on vacation.
Yeah, the hardest
Yeah,
part
it
was
was-
pushing send on your
Yeah.
resignation letter, right? Like
Yeah.
it was typed out. An attorney actually typed mine out because I was going through some stuff. But my attorney typed it out and said, "Hey, let's just send it. Like
Yeah.
that's your step." And when people say, they walk with God, you really have to have faith. And that was my livelihood. That was me and my wife's livelihood. My paycheck.
Yeah.
So how do you do that? You got to walk with faith. And
Yep.
we prayed a lot about it, me and my wife. And the biggest decision was me, her, and our close friends.
Yeah.
Is what we're doing really that helpful? Is it really worth it? Or should I just go to another agency? Because I had a lot of other agencies that are like, why don't you come over here and do it over here?
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, well, that's an opportunity, but I still would end up probably being in the same situation I am now eventually.
Mhm.
And I want to help everybody. How do I help everybody and
Yeah.
still be stuck in one place? So sending that resignation letter was the hardest thing to do.
Yeah,
But
it
once
was.
you did it, that weight leaves.
Yeah.
You're fully invested in what you do. I already believed in what I built, but now you have to, right? Because
Yeah.
that's the only way to walk. So when we got to that point, I was just like, man, I'm ready to go. And
Okay.
from
It was
that point,
something new.
Yeah.
It was something new because, like he said, this was our livelihood, and I know the conversation with my wife was around the same thing. Like, hey, look, you can tell it's getting to you. It's getting to you mentally. Yeah, you go enjoy it, which I do. I miss like being on the street. I really do.
Yeah.
But there was a time. It didn't matter how many you can have the most cases worked. You can have the most arrest warrants put out. You can have the most patrol things, patrol calls that you did, most reports, most search warrants. You can have the statistics to back up what you have done, and still you're being, looked at unfavorably just because of what we were trying to do off the side.
Right.
And that was my biggest thing for me personally was I never got, with El Paso, I always tried to lead in something because if I didn't, I felt like my dad would come out and say, hey, you're just wasting time. And he'd just slap the back of my head or something
Yeah.
like that. So I would feel that, hey, I'm wasting the city's dime. I'm wasting time not producing something, and whether if it's calls for service or anything. I would always try to lead in something. That way no one can really say anything about that.
Yeah.
And, not to dig into too much of our history or anything, but there was, I never really got in trouble.
Yeah.
In El Paso, with all the calls for service, all the people you come across, the arrests, the citations, the parking, the traffic stops, never got looked at it unfavorably by anyone from either department or civilians.
But when you're doing something positive,
When I did something positive, when I did something outside of work time,
right.
is when I got in trouble. And I had an issue with that. It was an outside after hour works
Right.
stuff, and
it's volunteering.
it's volunteering.
Yeah.
At that
What-
time, he's volunteering to come help out, and you're just like, still, let me figure out what this guy is up to. Like, dude, this is
Yeah.
my own time. If I was volunteering for anybody's organization, would you still be doing the same thing to
Yeah.
me?
Yeah.
No, it's just like people put in their mind, they already had it in their mind what they wanted to think about the program and what they wanted to think about us as individuals. That again, they let it get personal. They
Yeah.
started
Yeah.
making it about themselves,
And
and
that's
not
where I
about
lost the
the
love.
product.
I lost the love a lot of it because again, I still love police work, but when you're not surrounding by peers that support you or anything like that, that like, okay, hey, let's go onto someone else's Facebook and take a steel shot and say, hey, look what they're doing.
Yeah.
And then you're getting in trouble for it, even though it's for kids.
Yeah.
That's when I'm like, okay, now I have to look at the relevance of things of what I'm doing.
Yeah, I had a sergeant out of a local agency here. He runs a program, Next Metropolitan, and his thing is for troubled preteen to about 20 years old, but young men that don't have any guidance in their life type thing. He gets them, as long as they stay a part of the program, they get their first suit, and then he gets them a pair of like badass Nike shoes or whatever the trend is at the time, Jordans or whatever. It's a different outside the box perspective way to deal. And he also has like reformed felons that are a part of the program, stuff like that. But it's funny, he's totally supported. And I'm curious, had you guys had 10 years on the department, would you've got the same kick?
Well, he did. I mean, he had the experience coming from another agency. I didn't.
But you started it.
Yeah. I think it honestly had something to do with the personality that we put out there too. When we do our show is extremely kid friendly. I mean, it's very lighthearted. A lot of people didn't think that belonged in police work. So they're like, no, that's not how we portray ourselves. That's not how this is. Whereas we are going in it as on a different mindset. It's like, hey, how can I relate more to these people or to these little kids? And people took that completely the wrong way. And then it just kind of grew from there. And you had people that hated just to hate. Yeah. And you have people that just, they have nothing to do with what we do. It has nothing to do with them, but they're going to hate on it because my uncle hates on it or whoever else that's there hates on it.
People don't want to hear this, especially cops, but I hate to tell you, everything we've ever done has been dictated by the community. It's not the other way around. When it comes to, cameras, Rodney King, that was what kicked off having cameras in cars. There was a big push against that in the early 90s. Body cameras, that was kicked off by an event. Pepper spray, that was kicked off because they wanted cops having something more than just a gun to rely on, and then batons and tasers, keep going down the line. Everything we do has been because of community pushback, and that they say goes. It really does. That's how it works. So when you come up with an idea like y'all's and it's getting major traction, who's right?
Well, everything has to evolve, is what when he discussed.
Police work's fluid,
and the communities will always be there, regardless of whatever movement it is. Police and firefighters will always be there. Yeah, that's something that is always going to go parallel.
Death and taxes,
and death and taxes. Yes, it's going to be there in this country.
Yeah,
and if we don't evolve with that community, we're going to be left behind.
Yeah, you can't sit still, you can't sit idle. I get it. We get in a comfort zone, and it's not that cops are wrong. The ones that are like, well, that's not our function. You're right. It isn't. Our function is to enforce the law. I get that. But why, if I can do more, why wouldn't I do more?
Right.
We are the jack of all trades, master of none. I mean, that's just the way it is. You talked about dealing with a snake. How many times have you dealt with this? I wrangled a Shetland pony. They got free and run down the road. That was probably the most cowboy thing I've ever done in my life.
It's such a fun job. It really is such a fun job. It's very dynamic. And it's just one of those things, too, of, yes, it is not in our repertoire to go out and do this type of thing. However, though, there are agencies that have that community relations unit that is supposed to go out and do that. But
and then they think that's not your job. Why are you doing that in your off time? No, it's... Chase your passion. That's what I tell people.
It's being in a community relations thing. I was never in community relations, but that is probably one of the only proactive things that you can, besides training, that's the proactive thing that you can go out and do to be better at.
Right.
Everything that we do as cops is reactive.
Yeah.
Everything except for training or something community engagement.
Yep.
And there's a place for it. Just like anything, there is a place for that officer that does not want to do this. I get it.
It's fine.
But also, you don't have to hate on what
just
stay in your
lane.
Don't
throw shade because he's doing something that you're not into.
Yeah, and that's just the one thing that we really tried to preach, and we preach through everywhere we go. We'll have officers join us that it isn't their cup of tea to go out and dance or have fun in front of these kids or do what we do, but that's okay. You came. That's the
Right.
first step. You're here, and these kids get to meet you and see you.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I'd
That's
have
all
to
I
drink
need
a
you to
little
do.
bit if I'm going to dance.
There you-
I'm just going to
there you
say.
go.
And something loosens up.
Well, it gives me rhythm that probably doesn't exist, but
Neither does he.
I don't-
it's
in my
still-
head,
still
it gives
works
me
out.
rhythm.
My one of my favorite things about the character that I have is that you can be as goofy as you want. I don't have rhythm either, and I get to go and dance and just wiggle. And
Right.
it just makes the kids laugh. And then again, I had to get to that point though.
Right.
Like I was stoic. I was just like, yeah.
You had to shed your skin a little
Yeah,
bit.
I had
Just
to,
like
I had to grow
anybody.
back the old me a lot to do
Yeah.
something like this, and now it's just, I mean, you see what it does, and you're just like,
My constant battle with this show is I will catch myself. All right, welcome back. 2 Cops, 1 Donut. Like, I'm like, oh God, you're getting radio. Like, stop that. Like, just be yourself. Like, keep being yourself. So when I have these conversations and stuff like that, this is how I would talk to anybody. So I want it to be organic, and not forced or faked or anything like that. So I can only imagine if you were kind of reserved, you start to get more comfortable.
Yeah.
And then, or maybe get more, I don't know. Maybe you get more scared. I don't know.
no,
Yeah.
we both grown through something like this, not just through our friendship, but this program has grown. Our faith has grown from it, and we try to surround ourselves with like-minded people.
Absolutely.
And
that's so important.
for my background, the iron sharpens iron. You always want to surround yourself with people that can educate you, that can push you
Yeah.
to a better place, not just both in faith but also in life.
It's funny you say iron sharpens iron. I had one of my mentors at the department that I work at, Mendoza, if you ever want to check out that episode. We basically sound like Mike Tyson. We basically started a men's group in the department with the idea of mentoring
Mm-hmm.
each other, because that's where if we can't take care of the roots, oftentimes that's what causes these cancers
Yep.
to spread throughout departments and stuff like that. And we call it Iron Sharpens Iron. And it is a Christian-based group, but it's open for anybody, any
that's what it's
faith,
about.
all of that stuff. And it doesn't have to be a religious thing as
Nope.
much as it can be just guidance, family problems. They run rampant in
Yeah.
police work. So
Oh, it is.
dealing with your kids. It's just like preachers' kids and cops' kids. They're the worst kids
Yeah,
out there
that's-
can be.
That was always my biggest fear when I
Yes.
had kids. I was like,
Yeah, I got lucky. My dad was always he retired from the department I work for. Like, this is very odd for some people to hear, but like, he didn't care if I swore. He didn't like. He's very laid back, and I think it's because of working as a police officer. I see the worst of the worst.
Right.
And my kid didn't do something in the house or got a slight attitude with her sister or something like that. And my wife, to her, like, she's like, no, that is unacceptable.
yeah,
And to me, I'm like, I've seen kids their age stealing cars.
yeah.
Like on the grand scale of things, to me, it's not a big deal. So that laid back approach obviously worked with me, because I never looked at my dad as a cop. I always looked at him as just,
Yeah.
he let me figure out, make my own mistakes. So with this, I lost my train of thought for a second. I was thinking about some of the funny shit my dad used to let me do. Like the cursing and things like that. I knew you don't get to curse around anybody. Around the family, you're good. But, on a fishing trip, you're good. But in public, no. And it took away the fun. You know what I mean? Like, it took away like when you're a kid and you first learn to swear, you're like, yeah. And then you just go, like, when you're just around your friends and you swear ridiculously. At least that's how it was for me. It didn't even make sense, the type of swear words I would come up with. But it took away the mystery of it. And like firearms, my kids know, because this is how I grew up. My grandfather would be like, if you want to see the gun, let me know. We'll get it out. I'll show you how to take it apart, show you all that, and you can mess with that thing until your heart's content. I did that one weekend, and then it was done. Yeah. The fun, the mystery of it was over with. And I've done the same with my kids. Dad's always been, it's a tool to them. They know. And then 2, they never, like, the mystery's gone. They don't give a shit. They've been around them when they fired too. That's another key thing. feeling
Yeah.
that concussion
Right.
of what a gun feels like tells you the power they have. So
You're educating it. You're
Yes.
educating them, and that's the key thing to any growth is educating them.
Yep, absolutely. So I applaud what you guys do. I really like it. I want to see it for sure. Definitely want to see it. I want to put it on the site. If you guys ever want to do any sort of collaboration where you're like, hey, we want to put a message out, we can do 2 Cops, 1 Donut mixes with patrol stories. Hey, this is a cool, and I'll put it on all my stuff for y'all. Not that you guys have way bigger numbers than I do, but every little bit helps.
Absolutely.
So
We're all in it together.
It's a team, man.
yeah.
And like I said, if we meet some great people, we love working with those people as often as possible. I watched a few of the podcasts too. I mean, there's some great officers that you have that come on here. Do you know Woodward?
Phil?
Deputy Woodward?
Oh,
I think
Deputy
he's-
Woodward.
I forget his first name, but he's apparently pretty big out here in the Fort Worth area.
Okay,
and he's got a
Deputy.
huge-
It does sound familiar. I just have to.
He's
put
got a pretty
face.
big following, just like Mike the Cop and all those
Yeah.
people. And you're just trying to, hey,
Officer
if you-
Baker. yeah.
Officer Baker, if you could shout us out one time, let people know that there's some good cop programs out there, just how much influence some of these people have
Yeah.
can really help you
Yeah.
at least bring awareness to what it is you're trying to do. And so that's what we try to do. We try to partner with as many people as we can and really just inspire people. I mean, police work is awesome.
Yeah.
Like it really
I
is
love
for kids that ever want to do something impactful and you just don't know what to do. Like police work is actually really, really cool. You get to meet some of the greatest friends you'll have probably your entire life. You get to do new things every single day. You get to let your mind work. You're solving problems all day.
Front row tickets to the greatest show on earth.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's what I say.
It's awesome. And we just love to encourage that. You know, we want to encourage positive policing. We want to encourage young people to want to do
Yeah.
this job when
Maybe
we're
the
no longer
numbers will
doing it
come
anymore.
back.
Yeah.
You know, when we're not doing this anymore, or when agencies are so short staffed, you know, we're motivating people to really kind of not just be cops, but be great at whatever you do.
Yeah.
And it's been a real joy to be able to do this and share our story with you today.
Yeah. I just want to put you guys' mind at ease. The name didn't come from what you think it came from. It came from one of my other favorite podcasts is called 2 Bears, 1 Cave. It's Bert Kreischer and Tom Segura. They're both comedians, and there's no education involved on their show. It's just comedy for the most part, and them talking and bullshitting together. And they're like 2 best friends. So that's where the name came from. It didn't come from what you think it came from. But when I made the name, I didn't realize the correlation with some girls out there that had fun with a cup until another buddy brought it up. He's like, "Oh, it's funny. It's like this," and I'm like,
No.
Yeah.
that wasn't what I intended. It's funny. It's hilarious now, but it's too late. It is what it is. So I feel bad in front of a preacher. So
Oh, I'm not a
I
preacher.
know. I'm just
No,
messing
no,
with
no.
you.
Come on now. No.
I'm just messing with you. But I appreciate you guys being out. You got anything else that you want to hit before we?
Man, I think
Before we
we
wrap,
covered it
Just
all.
thanks for having us.
Hey, not a
Yeah,
problem.
it
I
was-
always like to end it with a little fist bump.
Yeah, heck. Let's do that.
When the camera fades out, we look cool. It's like, but I appreciate you guys being here.
Yeah.